25-year-old April Moore is suing former tenant Christopher McDonald for rent, bills, and vandalism to her property. April says Christopher intimidated her by displaying weapons.
Yeah, this is case number 341 on the calendar in the matter of Moore versus McDonald.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in, Your Honor. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat.
Ms. Moore, the defendant was a tenant of yours, according to your complaint, and it is your claim that when you told him to move, he refused to pay rent and then trashed the apartment before he left. You want him to pay for the damage. Mr. McDonald says that you made the place untenable. He couldn't live there. He was forced to move, and he caused no damage to your apartment, right? Mm-hmm. Was this a house or an apartment?
It was a house, Your Honor.
You were renting rooms in the house?
I was renting one bedroom to Chris.
Had you ever done that before?
Yes.
When did you rent the room to Mr. McDonald?
Mr. McDonald moved in on August 15th.
Did he sign a lease?
Yes.
How long was the lease?
It was not for a contractual period. It was a month-to-month agreement.
How did you find him?
I found him. I placed an ad online, which was maybe not the smartest decision in hindsight, but I was trying not to lose my house after my husband left.
What was the rent arrangement, Mr. McDonald?
$400 plus a third of the bills with a $100 security deposit.
So you moved in on August 15th. Did you pay rent for August?
Yes, ma'am.
Did he pay rent for August?
Yes, Your Honor.
What about September?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Your Honor.
When did you move out?
I moved out October 27th, I believe.
Did you pay her October?
No, ma'am.
Why not?
Because on September, I believe, 24th, I received a call from my godfather stating that he received a call from her. She went into my room and found a BB gun and was panicking about finding a BB gun in my room. I had my actual weapon with me. I have a 9mm in my truck at the time. So I knew it wasn't my 9mm.
Shh. Just a minute. You have a weapon.
Yes, ma'am.
Why do you need a gun?
Basically, it's a Second Amendment right. I'm allowed to own a weapon.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Do you have any special need for it?
No, for personal protection.
Okay. So she called you whatever and said that you found the gun. She was uncomfortable. And so?
And then the next day, I received another call up at work. Apparently, she went into my room for some reason or another. I suspect basically snooping because she found the gun.
Don't tell me what you suspect. Just
Okay.
tell me what the call said and from whom you received it.
From her. She wanted to know why I'm hoarding mass weapons of destruction, was her exact words.
Okay.
Okay. And I told her, basically, I've owned the weapons since I moved in, and that I can discuss this with her when I'm not at work. And at that point, she informed me that, no, it's not up for discussion. I want you out sooner than 30 days. And I just said, okay.
Okay. So?
So I also let her know that I would not be paying rent due to the fact that I had to put deposits down on an apartment, you know, electrical deposits, you know, all that stuff.
Your Honor, he's lying.
Judge, I know you raised your hand, but I did not acknowledge you to speak.
I apologize.
Mr. McDonald, you have to pay October's rent. Unless your agreement required a 30-day notice, which she didn't give you.
The lease did require a 30-day notice.
I'd like to take a look at it.
Okay. Here's the lease agreement. It also says all roommates will respect others' belongings
Just a
and
second.
privacy.
Just a second.
Yes, ma'am.
I can read. I want to look at one thing.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, I may be missing it because I'm reading it quickly. Will you please point out the line where she has to give you 30 days' notice? It says you have to give her 30 days' notice. Point out the line where she has to give you 30 days' notice.
I don't see it in here, Your Honor.
It's not in there, Mr. McDonald. That contract that you signed, and since pretty much you know the law because you know the Constitution, it doesn't say she has to give you 30 days' notice.
By Texas state law, she's
Don't tell me
required.
Texas state law. You're not in Texas. So you have to pay her October's rent.
Okay.
It's not her problem that you had to put money down elsewhere. You know, that's the agreement that you signed. You could have put in there, listen, I have to give you 30 days' notice. You've got to give me 30 days' notice.
I didn't expect her to be psycho.
Then you wouldn't want to live with a psycho, right?
Oh, no.
Very good. So there are alternatives. Go live in a motel if you don't want to live with a psycho, but if you live in a house, you have to pay rent, right? Now, let's talk about the vandalism. Next, let me see pictures of the vandalism.
Yes, Your Honor.
You wanted him out because you felt uncomfortable because of the weapons, Miss Moore?
Yes.
What were you doing snooping around in his room?
I was not snooping. I was trying to prepare my house to get it on the market so that I could sell it.
Miss Moore, that's just fine, sweetheart, as long as you don't rent out parts of your house to somebody else. Then you can't prepare it by going into their room. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor. He was aware that I was going to paint, though.
Listen to me. You can paint. You can do whatever you want. You weren't going into his room to paint.
Yes, Your Honor, I was.
You had your paintbrush all ready to go?
Yes, Your Honor.
I don't believe you.
I did.
Listen. Listen.
I did.
I don't believe you. I don't believe you. I think you went in there and you're snooping around.
No, Your Honor, I did not.
Well, that's what happened. You found things in there because you went in there. Okay. So he's got guns and knives. That's what he likes.
Your Honor, those were never displayed until I gave him a notice to vacate, and then he was visually trying to intimidate me with those.
Well, why did you give him a notice to vacate before you saw the weapons?
I gave him notice to vacate because he was leaving my house unlocked. He was a slob. It was clear that I wasn't going to be able to sell my house with him living in it.
Got it. Is this his room?
Yes.
Is this how he left it, or is this when he was living there?
That's when he was living there.
You get an F for neatness, Mr. McDonald. You get an A for Constitution and F for neatness. Where did you move from? From an apartment, sir?
I actually moved from my uncle's house out in Tonopah, Arizona.
Was he neat? Mm-hmm. Were you sloppy in his house, too?
No, ma'am.
Why were you so sloppy in her house?
Pretty much, I was working close to 16 hours a day with that, and when I got home, honestly, I was tired.
You rented to a slob.
I learned that.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
The sheriff had to tell her 12 times, where is the handgun?
And his handgun was never removed from the premises. I put it in the garage in the closet because I feared for my safety.
And later today,
The two people who do not have a legally binding contract, like a marriage certificate, to open up a joint bank account is the dumbest thing. Listen out there, youngsters.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. April Moore claims former tenant Christopher McDonald owes for rent, bills, and damage to her home. April says Christopher is obsessed with guns.
Okay. Now, there came a time, according to your complaint, Ms. Moore, that you felt uncomfortable, so you moved out of the house for a while. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
When did you move out?
It's hard to say it wasn't official. I started staying with my friend Angie here in the beginning of October, end of September. Nobody felt safe with me in the house with him. He's got a criminal record about 12 pages long.
Listen to me.
Yes.
Listen to me. You moved out the end of September, the beginning of October, until they moved out.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. You have an estimate for the cleanup of the house?
Yes. I also have bills for the utilities when I was not staying in the house because I feared for my safety.
I'm not interested in those.
Okay.
Give them back
First
to her.
packet. These are receipts for having the house rekeyed and recleaned and...
Do you have his security deposit?
Yes.
Okay, so that takes care of rekeying.
One time. It was rekeyed 3 times, Your Honor.
How many times did you rekey the house, Mr. McDonald?
I rekeyed the house once when I came home and had to call the sheriff due to the fact that I was locked out. And when the sheriffs told her that she needed to give me a key so I can lock the doors, she informed them no, she would not give me a key, and no, she would not return the handgun that she had stolen. The sheriff had to tell her 12 times, where is the handgun? And each time she told him, I'm not going to tell you.
And his handgun was never removed from the premises. I put it in the garage in the closet because I feared for my safety.
You have your handgun now, sir?
Not on me.
No, do you have it now?
Yes, ma'am.
I know you wouldn't get in here with it. All right, listen to me, madam. You pay to have the windows cleaned yourself. His problem is not having to re-clean and make your house spick and span. His problem is that he has to take care of the cleaning that's over and above normal wear and tear, and I'm going over these bills very carefully. Who are you living with now, by the way, sir?
I had to get a duplex with Corey, the other roommate.
Is he neat, too, or is he a slob?
No, he's neat. But right now, if you walked into our house, it's beautiful.
Her place should have been beautiful, too. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $819. That's all. Step out.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
She might have been concerned about who she had rented her room to, but, you know, that's something she should have considered beforehand.
I don't want a criminal living under my roof with a 12-page-long criminal record, including assault on a family member.
I do have a criminal history, not 12 pages long, though.
I don't want that armed and dangerous and in my house with me.
I do have assault, you know, small stuff like that. No felonies, though.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Crockett versus Wilhelm. Step forward, please.
24-year-old Jennifer Crockett is suing her former roommate, 21-year-old Suzanne Wilhelm, for rent, stolen property, and money taken from their joint account.
Ms. Crockett, the defendant was your roommate. You signed a lease together. You claim at the end of the lease she owed you a month's rent. She overdrew a joint checking account that you had for bills, and that she either used or took your clothes, and thereby rendering them useless to you. You wanted to pay for that, too. When did you move in together?
We moved in July 16th of '05,
And when was the lease up?
April 30th of '06. It was a 9-month lease.
When did you move out, Miss Wilhelm?
Moved out the end of March.
So there was 1 month left to go on the lease. Is that the month's rent that you are
Yes.
saying that she owes you?
Yes.
Okay. And you said you paid it.
Yes, I did.
Show me.
I don't have proof of it. I had a money order paid to the landlord. They lost it. I showed proof of that to them. I only had one copy of it.
Just a minute. You lived in this apartment with your boyfriend and your child.
Correct.
How did you and your boyfriend pay the rent every month?
Through money order.
Directly to the landlord? Did the landlord give you a receipt?
Yes, that was a
Did you-
photocopy.
Shh. When did you pay the landlord rent?
The 3rd of April.
And where did you get the money from?
From me and the witness.
And your boyfriend?
Correct.
Did you cash a check or did you take it from the bank?
Took it from the bank.
Where is the bank statement showing that you took it out of the bank on the 3rd of April?
I just did a money order. I had cash.
Now listen to me. Now just said to me that you took the money out of the bank. Show me a bank statement showing the money that you took out of the bank.
I don't have that, ma'am.
Well, so here's what you had. You had the opportunity to get that. You had the opportunity to get a copy of the receipt that the landlord gave you each time you paid rent, and you came to court with nothing, right?
Correct.
Okay. Did she pay the last month's rent?
No.
Good. How much was her share of last month's rent?
$858.75 after it was late. It was $50 late fee because it wasn't paid on time.
And you paid it?
Yes.
Okay. Can I see a statement that you paid it?
Yes.
So far, Miss Wilhelm, you owe $858. Because you can't come here with a cute smile and a story and no proof. You knew why you were coming, and you could have gotten the evidence. You either chose not to do it because you're lazy or because it's non-existent. Okay. Now let's take care of the bank account. Explain this bank account to me, Miss Crockett.
The bank account was a joint account that Susie and I went and set up to...
All right. Let me tell you this. How old are you?
24.
Never do that again.
I've learned. This was my big mistake.
I mean, you have reservations when you get married opening up a joint checking account, but certainly a roommate, you open up a joint checking account, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, the most ridiculous thing I can think of for two people who do not have a contract, a legally binding contract between them, like a marriage certificate, to open up a joint bank account is the dumbest thing. Listen out there, youngsters. Okay, so you opened up a joint bank account, I assume, to pay your bills.
Yes.
How much money did you put into the bank?
Every month we'd add up the bills and I would deposit that amount, so I was never putting in more than what was needed to pay the bills.
You mean each of you put in the same thing? Mm-hmm. Did that pay for the rent too? Mm-hmm. Well, how does she owe you $858?
Because she decided in December to start using it as her own personal checking account, and I have all of the statements showing her Old Navy charges, Bel Air charges, gas station charges, and overdrew the account. When I found out it was overdrawn and she had been writing bad checks, I asked to close out the account.
Why did you do that, Miss Wilhelm?
I didn't. I used the Bel Air stuff was for groceries because it was also used for groceries.
No, was not.
The Old Navy, yeah, I mistaked it because I had two bank accounts. I had my own and I had one joint. And I took the money out of my account and I put it into the joint account for the Old Navy.
When?
A couple weeks later. I don't have exactly the date.
Well, you must have the records. You're going to show me where you made a deposit to cover the Old Navy bill. You have all the records? Mm-hmm. Show me where you saw the Old Navy bill and took the money out of one account and put it in the joint account in order to cover the Old Navy bill.
Okay.
Give it to her.
There was also Kohl's.
We're going to do one at a
Okay.
time. She's going to show me.
Okay.
Just trying to provide a little background music while we look.
Like Jeopardy.
Listen, Merv Griffin has done very well with that. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, so the guy who wrote it, I guess.
He wrote it.
Oh, he wrote that?
He wrote it.
Wow.
Every time it plays, he gets a royalty. Did you find what you were looking for, Miss
I
Wilhelm?
found it, but
Okay.
it doesn't have the money.
How much was the check that you wrote to Old Navy?
It was $122.02.
Good. And then you realized that you made a mistake a couple of weeks later, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what you said. So there should be a corresponding $120.02 deposit. Shh. a couple of weeks later when you realized your mistake. So find it.
I transferred money. That was $70.
I'm not asking for $70. I'm talking about $120.02.
I didn't transfer that much.
Right. Now, let's go through some of the other bills. A Kohl's bill, you said.
Yes, there was Kohl's.
How much was the Kohl's bill? What was the check for? Because I assume you made another mistake.
There's about 50.
Shut.
Sorry.
I'm not going through 50. I'm merely making a point.
Right.
Kohl's, what was the amount?
$77.42.
All right, now assuming that that was yet another mistake, you want to find a corresponding transfer for $77.42.
There wasn't.
Okay, so Miss Wilhelm, I'm not going to bother myself with going over. It seems clear that Ms. Crockett is correct when she said that you started using this joint account that was opened up with the express purpose of paying joint bills for your own personal use. Period. How much does she owe you from the joint account?
She owes me $867.20.
Can I see that, please? Now, when you found out that she had been using this account, did you have a discussion about it?
Yes, I did. She didn't really have an explanation for me.
Why were you in such financial distress?
I wasn't at the time.
Well, clearly you were either in financial distress or you're very poor at keeping records. What about him? What does he do?
He works.
Yeah.
He works at a sheet metal company.
Is he the father of your child?
Yes, he is.
So why don't you use his checking account to pay for this stuff?
I don't know.
Who are you living with now?
His mother.
Where do you work?
I work at Linens and Things.
So why don't you have your own place?
Because I went back to school, and so it was really hard on us.
What?
I was just going to explain that the reason we moved back in with my mom was she was doing school, and also her hours, her hours at her job varied.
You have a joint bank account with her now?
No, I don't. We did have, but we closed it. We closed it. Yeah.
How come you closed it? Come on, talk honestly to me. You don't talk honestly to me.
It was through my bank. We had problems with it. I didn't want to deal with it.
You had what kind of problems?
I honestly don't remember.
Got to watch out.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, you want to go into this clothes nonsense?
Yes, I had started noticing several items of clothing missing, and I confronted her about it. She told me she had no idea what I was talking about, that maybe her boyfriend had mistakenly taken my clothes out of the dryer and put them in her room after I found 8 pairs of $100 jeans in her bedroom. So after he said, no, that was not the case, I kind of figured, okay, she must be getting into my bedroom stealing things. So I put a lock on my door. It was the kind of lock you can pick with a screwdriver, so that wasn't keeping her out. Still, many things were coming up missing. So I decided to go change the lock with a key. Suddenly nothing was missing anymore, but when they left the last month and left a mess in the apartment, I started to try to clean up and found several of my belongings in her room, most of them undergarments that I was not going to take back.
Gotta wait, cheap. I'm not dealing with underpants, if you don't mind. You know, 17 years of postgraduate work, I don't do underwear.
I don't...
Charge him for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,725. That's all. Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
21-year-old telemarketer Crystal Eckert is suing her ex-boyfriend, advertising specialist Matthew Hammers, for car payments, damages to the vehicle, and an assault.
Yeah, this is case number 72 on the calendar in the matter of Eckert versus Hammers. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat, please.
Miss Eckert, the defendant used to be your boyfriend, and according to your complaint, he owes you for a variety of things. In 2001, you co-signed for a car for him. According to you, he stopped making payments on the car at some point. You took over those payments. You also took back the car in February of this year. You want him to make the payments to you that you made on the car when the car was in his possession. Then you claim that he damaged 2 cars during an alleged assault on you. One was a car that you were in, and one was the car that you had co-signed for. And you also claim that he assaulted you. The defendant says that he made the car payments, so he doesn't owe you anything for the car, that he returned the car to you in February of this year, and that with regard to the assault, he was merely defending himself. Correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
Okay, so let's get to the car. We agree that she co-signed for a car for you in 2001. Is that correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
On what date did you return the car to her, sir? I'm taking your answer. You say you returned the car to her.
Yes, February 8th.
Tell me the circumstances, Mr. Hammers, of your returning the car to her.
I returned the car as I came back from a trip to Arizona because I didn't want to be a part of her life anymore. I'd had enough of everything that went on.
That's a lie.
Wait, don't speak. When did the two of you part company?
About November 24th.
You took the car with you.
Correct.
Well, then I want you to explain to me in November, December, January, what prompted you in February to return the car to her?
The altercation that took place on January 11th.
Okay, so this assault altercation preceded you giving the car back to her.
Correct.
Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. By the way, Miss Eckert, what did you do with the car when he gave it back to you?
I had to get it fixed, or the bank was going to sue me, and so I had to get the car fixed, and I have estimates showing that I got it fixed. And then...
Can't you just answer my question?
Yes.
Good.
And
Let's
then I
start
returned
again.
it to the bank after I fixed it.
What did you have to pay them? Anything?
To return it? No.
So there was no money owed?
No.
How much did you spend to have it fixed?
$474 and some change.
So the car was practically paid off.
No, it was.
No.
We just gotten it. We're making
September.
payments on it, and we bought it September 29th.
Did you both put down a down payment?
No.
I put down my old car as a down payment.
Just you?
Just myself.
She didn't put down any
No.
money? And no money was owed on the car because you both co-signed it, so that nobody's credit is going to be at risk or anything
My
else?
credit is, it shows repossession.
It does?
Yes.
But the finance company didn't tell you that there was any deficiency?
I had to owe the rest of the money.
Well, they had to sell the car at some
Yeah.
point. Did they do that yet?
I have no idea.
Let me see what you have there.
This is showing that I paid to have the Eclipse fixed, and these are estimates showing that I tried to find the cheapest place.
How much did you pay to have the car fixed?
$474.68.
Well, is that this bill?
Yes.
Did you make all the payments on the car, sir?
I did, Your Honor.
Show me proof that you made the payments.
May I interject? The way I made the payments was, it was in her name, and I handed her the cash. I have Corey Sykes with me today to prove that. A couple of payments that were made, he took me to give her the cash.
I have never seen this guy.
Let me tell you something, Miss Eckert. I think that you're a little premature in your lawsuit with regard to this car. Ultimately, the bank is going to come after you.
I returned the car February 18th of 2004 and haven't heard nothing from the bank.
Well, then you better call them, madam, because if you have on your credit report a repossession, the bank is going to tell you how much the deficiency is. They gave you $14,000. They're not going to be able to sell it for $14,000. Do you understand? They're going to sell it for substantially less. And you are going to be primarily responsible for that. So don't look to him for $400 to fix it. You have to look to him for thousands.
Well, that's not all that I'm suing him for.
I understand, but that's primarily what you're suing him for.
Yes. I also have a note saying that he's responsible for all damages that he signed.
That's fine. Listen to me. Don't do anything with regard to the car until you have indication from the bank as to what he owes you. Do you understand? What do
Yes.
you want?
I was with him when he went to go drop off the payments. Since that section's done, I just want to let you know you are very beautiful. I've always admired you. Cute, thank you. Since I'm done, I'll sit down.
I have never seen that guy.
You got it? Do you understand
Yes.
what I'm saying to you? All right. Now, the only part of your lawsuit left is the assault. So when did this alleged assault take place?
January 11th, 2004.
Tell me about it.
I went over to his house because he wanted me to go up to the bar with him, and I didn't want to go to the bar because the girl that I wasn't getting along with, Alicia, was going to be up there. And so I told him, when you get home, call me or text message.
What's a text message for those of us who are
On a
electronically challenged?
On a cell phone, you can text message somebody without having to call them. It's just like an email.
Go ahead.
And I said, okay, do you want me to meet you at your house? And he
Meet
said,
him for what?
to get his phone, because his public defender was going to call about...
To get his phone.
Take a message.
Why couldn't he speak to his public
Because
defender?
he was going out of town.
Where was he going?
To Arizona, as far as I knew.
And his phone doesn't work in Arizona?
No.
You can't get incoming calls in Arizona?
I didn't have the service at that time, though.
Well, if you didn't have the service, what were you giving her your phone for?
I wasn't.
You were?
Yes, you were.
Okay. So, according to you, you were going to his house to get his telephone so that you could take the call from a public defender because he was going to Arizona.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
We were walking back to the Grand Dam
What were you walking back to the Grand Dam where she was sitting?
because I wanted to tell her I wanted no part of her anymore.
I think she knew that.
True.
And later today,
I told her no, that I was going to take her home. She got very upset, and I was going about 35 miles an hour, and she put my car, and it hit reverse, almost went into park, but not quite.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Crystal Eckert says ex-boyfriend Matthew Hammers owes for unpaid car payments, damages to the vehicle, and an assault. Matthew says it was Crystal who assaulted him.
All right. Who did you go to his house with?
Carl Bonnie.
With Carl?
Yes.
Okay. What happened when you got to his house?
Carl stayed in the car. I parked my car down the street, and I walked up. He came downstairs. I got a text message saying, "That's up what you did to Matt." He said, "I don't know what you're talking about."
I don't know what you're saying.
Okay, I got a text message from the girl that I don't like, Alicia, saying, "That's up what you did to Matt." I asked Matt, I said, "What did I do to you?" And he's like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And so I was like, "Fine, whatever, I'm done. This is stupid." And I turned around and I walked off. Matt comes around, I start running, and I hear him, and then he puts his arms around me, and I go sliding on the ground. I have scars from when he did it on my arm and on my knee, and I also have pictures when I fell.
And then what happened?
And then I yell for Carl. Carl comes running out, and Carl Bonnie and Matt got into a fist fight, and I went back to my car. I wanted to leave. I didn't want to have no part of anything.
So?
And then after that, I was yelling for Carl, "Come on, let's go, let's go." Carl and Matthew are walking down the street talking.
So they stopped fighting and now they're buddies?
As far as I knew.
Okay, keep
That's
going.
what it looks like to me in my car.
Keep going.
And so Carl gets in my car, Matthew comes on the driver's side and says, "I want to talk to you, I want to talk to you." I said, "No, I don't want to talk." And he gets all mad and runs up to the Eclipse and punches the Eclipse in the left quarter panel. And then I'm driving off, he comes, he punches my driver's side window of the Grand Am and pulls on it, does not break the window. After he punched the window, he was pulling me out of the vehicle. I was clawing his face as in self-defense because I was halfway out of my window. And one arm was behind me, pulling me out. Carl was trying to get his arm off me. That was the end of the story.
Okay, Carl.
He also called my mom.
Now, Carl, Miss Eckert says that at some point after you got it on with Mr. Hammers, you were walking back to the car together. Is that true?
Yes.
And when you were walking back to the car together, what were you discussing?
He said he wanted to talk to her.
Now, you had just been fighting with him, is that right?
Yes.
But yet you were walking back to the car and you weren't fighting?
No.
How did that come about?
He said he wanted to stop, so I stopped.
Well, tell me exactly what he said. He said, "Let's stop this."
And then we...
Is that what he said? Let's stop
Yes.
this? And then he said to you what, Carl?
He said he wanted to talk to Crystal, and I said, "She's not going to talk to you." And I said he
Did he
to
say
leave.
what he wanted to talk to her about?
He said he loved her and he was sorry for hitting her.
And then what happened?
And then once we started driving off, he ran up to her car and yelled at her, and then ran back to his car and punched the Eclipse.
What did he yell at her?
He was just calling her names and all that stuff. And
Okay. And he came back to the car?
he ran up to the car and punched the window and grabbed it and started yanking on it, and then started pulling her out of the car. Her head hit the mirror, and I was trying to get his hand off of her. And then all these other people from the same complex there came out and yelled at him to get away, and it stopped from there.
Okay. Now I'll hear you, Mr. Hammers. Let's go back to the 11th of January. Let's hear what you have to say for yourself, sir.
I was at the bar doing karaoke, and I got back home, and Crystal had called my home phone and said that she was downstairs. And I'd gone downstairs to see what she wanted, and she said, "I got this text message from Alicia, who was a girl that was at the bar as well." And at this time, Carl and her had dated, and I didn't know, they could have been dating at that time too. I didn't know. And
what part of "don't speak" don't you understand?
Okay.
Go ahead.
I said, "I had no clue about this text message. I don't know what's going on." We exchanged words, and at that point, she had reached out and hit me and scratched my neck. And I was like, I don't want any part of this. So I turned around to walk away, and she came after me. She has shoes that she does not tie, and tripped and fell, and she caught my foot when she went down, and I fell as well. From there, she yelled for Carl as I was up helping her up. Carl came out and said, "What are you doing to my girl?" And ran at me, and he had contacted me, which my back end had hit the Eclipse. From there, Carl and I began to wrestle around, and his earring got caught on his sweater. And he said, "Dude, I don't want to fight you anymore. I underestimated you can fight." From there, I helped him get his sweater off of his earring. And from that time, we were walking back to the Grand Dam, and I just...
What were you walking back to the Grand Dam where she was sitting?
Because I wanted to tell her I wanted no part of her anymore in my life.
I think she knew that.
True.
Who's Alicia?
Alicia was one of her friends that was at the bar.
Do you know Alicia?
Just through her.
But you've never dated Alicia?
No.
Did you think he had dated Alicia?
No.
Do you think he had talked to Alicia about you?
No.
So what did you care about the text message from Alicia?
Because Alicia told me that she was going to bust my teeth in.
You didn't tell me that. When did she tell you that?
The night before.
Well, why would she say that to you?
Because Matthew told me that Alicia asked Matthew if she wanted to smoke some drugs with her.
And?
Well, then Alicia thought that I was saying a bunch of rumors about her, saying that she's a drug addict, she's no good mother. And so I was like, okay, Alicia wouldn't let me tell her. Alicia told me that she was going to bust my teeth in, so why would I go to the bar?
What did that have to do with him?
He's the one who told me that Alicia asked him that. And
But she was not angry with you about that. She was angry with you because she said that you were going around telling people she was not a good mother and a drug addict.
Yes, and I don't know where she would get that because me and Alicia, we've been friends since 3rd grade.
Oh, so you went over to Matt's house because you were annoyed with him because you thought that he had told your friend Alicia.
That's not
that,
true.
No. I mean, it's coming clear. You know, I ask enough questions, it will become clear. You weren't going over there to say to him, what's this about? You knew what it was about. It was about you asking him, why did you say something to Alicia about that drug business that I spoke to you about?
That's not
because now she's sending me bad text messages, and she says she's going to bust my teeth. Listen to me, you had no reason to go over to his house that night. The only reason you went over to his house that night had to do with the text message from Alicia, not with this baloney about getting his cell phone. Listen to me very carefully. I'm dismissing without prejudice that part of your claim which has to do with the car. Wait until your bank advises you how much the deficiency on the car is after they sell it, and then you sue him for that deficiency, because you are responsible for that, sir. As far as the assault is concerned, I find that you precipitated it by going over there that evening, and that you did, in fact, trip and fall, which is consistent with the injuries. Quiet. The injuries in your photograph to your knee. I'm dismissing that part of your claim with prejudice. Goodbye, and have a happy life.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I think she's just trying to get back at me for, leaving her and life in general.
No, I wasn't angry about that. I was angry that Matthew tackled me.
One time she had said if I messed up her credit, then she was going to mess up my life, so...
I'll be seeing him in court in Omaha.
If she's going to try, she's going to try.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Glenn versus Kelly. Step forward.
23-year-old hospital administrator Megan Glenn is suing her former friend, 25-year-old bartender Megan Kelly, for damaging the transmission on her car. Megan says her drunken friend put the car into reverse while it was in motion.
Miss Glenn, you and Miss Kelly used to be friends, and it is your complaint that you were giving her a ride home because she had too much to drink, and an incident happened in the car, and she took the shift on your car and threw it and damaged your transmission. You had to have the transmission fixed. You want her to pay for that. In her defense, she says that she did not damage your transmission. All she did was put it in neutral. So, when did this happen?
October 18th, 2003.
Where were you?
We had been at her parents' house.
Doing what?
Hanging out.
Had you had anything to drink when you were there?
I think I had 2 or 3 beers to drink that evening.
What about Miss Kelly?
Yes.
You'd been drinking too?
We both had been.
How did you get to her parents' house?
I drove my car to her parents' house.
And Miss Kelly, how did you get to your parents'
I drove my car
house?
as well.
Why didn't you drive home?
My parents didn't think that I should, so I rode home with Megan.
Your parents felt that you had had too much to drink?
Yes.
At that point, did you argue with your parents when you were ready to go home?
I did.
Okay. What happened?
We were on the way to her apartment, and she wanted to go to the bar that her boyfriend was working at so that she could get her keys to go. She was going to take a taxi back to her parents' home and get her car and drive it to her apartment.
And you said?
I told her no, that I was going to take her home. She got very upset, and I was going about 35 miles an hour, and she put my car, and it hit reverse, almost went into park, but not quite. The car came to an abrupt halt, and I pulled over to the side of the road. I yelled at her to get out of the car. She did, and then I went to put my car into reverse, and it was not functioning at all whatsoever, so I yelled at her to get back in the car, and she did, and we drove home from there.
You drove her to her house?
To her parents' house.
Can I see the bill?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Miss Kelly, your version.
She had said that she would drive me up to my boyfriend's work to get my spare set, and that we would actually go back to my parents' house, and I would just drive my car home. And then she changed her mind and decided that we were just going to go back to my apartment, and I said, well, if that's the case...
When did she change her mind?
We'd been in the car about 10 minutes.
You think she was concerned about you?
It's possible.
Go ahead.
I know I shouldn't mess with a vehicle in motion, but I put the car in neutral. You could even hear the engine rev like it was in neutral. It did not come to an abrupt halt. So then she went to put it back in gear, and that could have caused the damage, because I know, a car that's in drive can't go to park or reverse. There's safety features in the car. So from neutral, it could go into pretty much any gear, but from drive, I just bumped it back into neutral, and then she freaked out, jammed it back in gear, and then she stopped the car and told me to get out.
So whose fault do you think it is that her transmission was ruined that evening?
I don't think it was my fault. From drive to neutral.
I'm asking you, whose fault do you think it was?
I guess it's Megan's fault.
Your fault. Let's say I believe you that what you did was you were drunk and you put your hands on her car and you put the car into neutral while she was driving. But for the fact that you did that, she wouldn't have tried to put a car into a different gear, right?
True.
So you have to pay for it. That's what happens when girls get drunk. They do stupid things. Boys do stupid things when they get drunk too. But it always is absolutely amazing to me that girls who are supposed to know better will drink to a point where they lose control of their thinking process and they act like idiots.
Okay.
Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,774.22. Thank you very much.
Parties are excused. Next up.
Ronald and Fawn Desi are suing their daughter's former friend, Michael Moskovich, for the cost of medical bills. The Desis say Michael's friend broke her wrist while riding one of their mules.
All rise. Yeah, this is case number 329 on the calendar in the matter of Desi versus Moskovich.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in, Your Honor. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat, please.
Mr. and Mrs. Desi, you have a daughter,
We do.
and what is her name?
Sarah.
And Sarah is your friend.
Yes.
According to the complaint that I read, you maintain horses at your home, and Sarah invited you to come over and ride horses. According to you, you asked Sarah if you could bring a couple of friends. She said, sure. You arrived with 2 friends. According to the plaintiffs, they agreed to allow you to ride as guests 2 horses and a mule. They say that they said, listen, just walk the horses, don't run them. You were out with your 2 friends, and one of your friends fell off the horse and broke an ankle. Mr. and Mrs. Desi, for some reason that they will explain to me, paid the medical bills for this young woman. And Mr. and Mrs. Desi now feel, since you brought these 2 other people with you, and since you were in some way negligent, you should be responsible for the medical bill that they paid. Is that pretty much the case?
Yes.
Well, that's sort of an interesting scenario, Mr. and Mrs. Desi. Are you attorneys?
We are.
That's what Mr. Moskovich says in his answer. So let's try to figure out, since you are both attorneys, under what theory do you believe the defendant is responsible for this young woman's medical bills?
We believe he's responsible because he repeatedly promised to walk the horse that he would be riding as the lead horse, and instead he ran the horse and admitted...
How do you know that, sir? Were you there?
No, not only did we hear from a neighbor...
Listen, Mr. Desi, you're a lawyer, so you know that you can't tell me what you heard from a neighbor, because that's all hearsay. He acknowledges that he picked up the pace, didn't run the horses, but that you picked up the pace. He's not responsible for what this other young woman does.
The mule that the other young woman was on simply followed Michael when he started trotting his horse.
Mr. Desi, how do you know that, sir?
Because that's what Michael and the lady who got hurt, Darren, told us.
Well, where's the lady who got hurt?
She's right here.
Stand up. You're Darren.
Yes.
Fine. You promised that you wouldn't run the horses.
Yes, but can I say...
Just a second. Okay. Did you run the horses?
No.
The horses were not running?
They were trotting.
Trotting. Okay. So, that's what they say.
Well, and trotting is actually worse than running. Anybody who's ever been on a horse knows that trotting creates a very, very bumpy type ride, especially when you're trotting on a road instead of on softer dirt.
Mr. Desi, you told me that when you turned over the horses to Mr. Moskovich, he said to you that he would not run the horse. He says he did not run the horse. He said he trotted the horse. Now, you were riding the mule?
Yeah, it's actually a big, it looks like a big, beautiful brown horse.
But it's a mule?
It's called a mule, yes.
Okay. How fast were you going?
I would say we were walking for about 15 minutes, and then the minute the horse started to pick up pace, I don't know how to describe it. I don't know I don't know if the definition
Which
is
horse?
trot. My horse, the horse, or actually there were 3 horses. Our friend Araj was riding the first horse, who was leading. Then it was Mikey, and then it was me in the back. And we were walking for about 15 minutes, and then the minute the horse started to pick up pace, not run. I am not an avid horseback rider. I'm afraid of it. There's no way I'm going to run. You know, like that, I guess. And the minute that started to happen, I slipped to the side, fell off the horse, broke my left wrist, actually.
Wrist.
3 places.
Well, just a second. Miss Sandler, you fell off the horse.
Yes.
Why would you think that Mr. and Mrs. Desi would be responsible for your medical bills?
Because I believe the saddle was not saddled correctly.
Well, did you tell them that?
Yes.
And what did they say when you told them that it wasn't saddled correctly?
Well, I called Mr. Desi to talk to him about the possibility of maybe going through homeowner's insurance, and he had told me that he would pay my medical bills, that he did not want me calling his home because he did not want his wife to know, and that he did not want to go through homeowner's insurance. He'd rather just pay it himself.
Did she tell you that the horse appeared to be saddled, Mr. Desi?
No, she did not.
Well, if she didn't claim to you that the saddle had been misapplied, because I don't ride horses, then as a lawyer, why would you want to pay her medical bills when you bore no responsibility? She assumes the risk that she's riding a horse. She's a novice. She understands she's a novice. If she falls off the horse, that's her problem, not yours.
Only because I was threatened with a lawsuit because her uncle is an attorney.
Just a second. What did she claim when she threatened you with a lawsuit, Mr. Desi?
That if I didn't pay her medical bills, I was going to be sued.
Just a second. So you say, why would I be responsible for your medical bills? And are you trying to tell me, sir, that she didn't say to you because the saddle wasn't on right?
I heard from Michael that she was claiming the saddle had slipped on the horse. She never told me, but Michael did.
So that you were aware that that was the claim that she was making?
Yes.
Well, after the fact, not at that stage.
At what stage?
Months later, when we heard from her father after Michael did not pay the bills that he had promised.
Michael is under no obligation whatsoever to pay the bills. Absolutely none.
He promised to do that, though.
I don't know. Did he promise you?
Yes, he did.
Oh, well, tell me about that.
He promised Ron heard him first, and then when I was
just a second.
feeding them
Listen
dinner.
to me. Hey, when did he promise to pay you the bills?
He promised in my presence to Darren to pay the bills to Darren.
So when did you decide to assume that responsibility?
When we got threatened with a lawsuit. The alternative was to turn it into our insurance company, who would have raised our premiums or canceled us, regardless of whether we were right or wrong.
Mr. Moshkovitz is not responsible for these medical bills. And if you assume the responsibility of paying for them because you chose not to turn the matter into your homeowners, that's your problem. You, through your daughter, invited these people onto your property. You have no direct proof that they did anything untoward in riding these horses. You would bear no responsibility unless there was something that happened that was your fault. If, for instance, you missaddled a horse that caused the blanket to slip, that caused her to fall off, that would have been your responsibility. And perhaps that's the reason why you decided not to put the matter to your homeowner's insurance. I don't know, but certainly Mr. Moshkovitz isn't responsible at all. You're lawyers. You have to have a theory of a case if you're lawyers.
We believe he broke his promise to us to walk the horses. Trotting is not walking.
You have no proof of that, Mr.
Your Honor,
Desi.
we do.
He admitted it.
And he went 9/10 of a mile in 5 minutes. Now, you tell me he was walking those horses. He was not. He was running the horses. The horses were perfectly saddled. There was no indication that a saddle was askew. When I got to
I do not believe, madam, for 1 second that this young lady, who was not a horse person, was running a horse.
She wasn't running the horse. Her mule simply followed Michael, who decided not to walk his horse.
I don't believe her horse was running.
Trotting then.
Listen, Miss Desi, I'm not going to sit here and try to figure out when does a trot become a run.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And later today,
he had told me that he was separated from his wife, and I didn't find out till months later that the day he got my phone number, he went home and moved out and left his wife.
That still doesn't tell me why you let him move in 2 days after you met him.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Ronald and Fawn Desi claim their daughter's former friend, Michael Moskovich, owes for medical bills they paid on behalf of his friend.
He said to you, I will not run the horses. I don't believe he ran the horses. You have no proof that he ran the horses. You have no case. Period. You know you have no case. You can talk from today until tomorrow. You're two lawyers. You're trained people. Give me a theory.
Negligence.
Negligence. The only negligence that I've heard is that the saddle was misapplied. That's the only negligence.
That's not the only evidence. You've heard me say I got to the animals were perfectly saddled. I have been saddling animals for 30 years.
Perfect. Then let us assume, Miss Desi, that the saddle was perfectly applied. And the reason she fell off the horse was because she was not a good horse person, and she fell off the horse and broke her ankle. That happens through nobody's fault. She fell off the horse. He's not responsible for that. You are not responsible for that. If you chose to assume that responsibility, you cannot visit it on the defendant. Your case is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Actually, I was in the middle, and there was a guy in front of me, and she was in the back. So I don't know why they're coming after me when they could have gone after the guy who was actually leading.
I chose to be a good person and just let them pay my medical bills. And I think that they're horrible people for going after this one.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Null versus Dietz. Step forward.
Deborah Null is suing former live-in boyfriend, Adam Dietz, for unpaid rent and bills. Deborah says Adam moved in 2 days after they met.
Ms. Null, the defendant was a boyfriend of yours for a brief period of time. You met him, according to your complaint, while he was separated from his then-pregnant wife. According to your complaint, you met him, he moved into your home shortly thereafter. You had an agreement with him that he would pay for half of the bills, half the rent on the house, because the house belongs to your mother, and half of the credit card bill that you were using because it was just more convenient. You claim that he moved out months later without paying his obligations. Mr. Dietz says that he acknowledges that he owes you a month's rent, $400. Doesn't owe you any other money. He says he was prohibited from staying at the house after March of this year. So, when did you meet him? What date?
January 12th.
Where?
At a bar.
And when did he move in?
January 14th.
Foolish, right?
Yes.
Foolish.
Very.
Shh. Why did you let him move in 2 days after you met him?
Well, he had told me that he was separated from his wife, and I didn't find out till months later that the day he got my phone number, he went home and moved out and left his wife. I thought he'd been separated for, like, a long amount of time.
What difference is that? That's not my question. I don't care if he was...
Okay, well, he had told me that he was staying at his father's house, which was an hour and a half away from his work, and I lived close to his work.
That still doesn't tell me why you let him move in 2 days after you met him.
Because I really liked him.
What?
After the initial night, I tried to leave multiple times. She threw a fit. She's been over my dad's house.
Mr. Dietz, why don't you be quiet for me?
All right.
Because the statement that you just made to me is ridiculous.
No,
yeah,
it is not,
ridiculous.
Your Honor.
Yeah, I'm telling you it's ridiculous. And I assume you don't want to appear ridiculous. Because while I don't understand why she would allow you to move in 2 days after she met you, I can understand why you would move in. Because
I can go into details, Your Honor.
I'm going to allow you to go into details, sir. It's something that I'm looking forward to with a great deal of expectation. Because I know that you have this peculiar dumb look on your face, you know, this dumb grin on your face. You know, you're not quite sure how things are going to go. I'm going to tell you right now, if you're going to be a smart aleck, things are not going to go well. Because she may have found you attractive enough to allow you to move into her home 2 days after she met you. I guarantee you one thing, sir. You're not my type.
Yes, Your Honor.
That's better. Now we understand each other, Mr. Dietz. Now, he moved in January 14th, and according to your complaint, you made an arrangement with him at some point to pay some rent.
Yes.
When was that?
It was February 15th.
Okay, so he lived there for a month, rent-free, expense-free.
Yes.
And when did you have this agreement with him?
Well, what had happened was he had bought me diamond earrings for Valentine's Day. And he gave me a card and asked me to marry him. So I figured if we were going to get married, then he should have to start paying rent. I'd been divorced for 3 years, hadn't really had a boyfriend, so I know I ran into it way too fast. I realized that, and I just fell in love very quickly.
Okay, so fell in love, but were practical enough to have him sign an agreement to pay you half the rent.
Yes.
And why was that?
Because my ex-husband, when we had got divorced, I was left with all the bills from him. We had been married for over 10 years, and I wasn't going to go through all that again.
Okay, can I see the agreement that he signed? Okay. So Joanne Bird is your mother.
Correct.
She gave you a credit card?
Yes.
And you had a card made for him?
No. When we would go to the grocery store or anything that was bought for the house, we had agreed to split whatever was bought for the house, groceries and stuff.
Did you use the credit card for anything else?
We did buy some clothes, but other than that...
No, not we. You.
No.
You didn't use the card to buy clothes?
Yeah, I bought clothes.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You, personally.
Yes.
Well, he's not responsible for that.
Well, he had clothes on there, too.
Oh, well, I'm not getting involved with the credit card bill, madam. Understand that.
Yes.
You know, I didn't do 15 years of post-high school to go through a credit card bill line by line. If you were foolish enough to buy stuff on a credit card for him, that's your problem. How much rent did you pay your mother for the house?
I usually would give her $200 a week, and that would be including utilities and stuff. Because it's
so
all
your
in her name.
agreement, Mr. Dietz, was to give her $400 a month for the rent?
My agreement was to help out, Your Honor, and nonetheless, I was the only one working. She had worked at her last job.
Listen to me.
That...
Listen to me. I'm looking at your answer, Mr. Dietz. You say, I do agree I owe her about $400 for 1 month's worth of rent and bills.
I never signed that piece of paper, Your Honor.
Talk
we may
to
have had a verbal agreement.
Just a
but that is
second.
it.
I'm looking at this piece of paper, sir. You did sign this piece of paper, right?
Yes, I did.
Well, that's what I'm reading from. It says, I do agree. I'm speaking. I do agree I owe her about $400 for 1 month's worth of rent and bills. You signed that. So, I'm not talking about anything. I'm talking about this.
Okay. Yep, that's exactly true.
What month do you owe her for, sir?
I believe that would be February.
You lost your job in March?
I collected unemployment, which was still $430 a week.
Well, now you're not helping yourself, but whatever it is, if you want to tell me that, that's fine, because according to Ms. Knoll, you said that because you were not working, she agreed to let things go until you got a job, until you could pay her back. But now you tell me you had the money. What month did you move out of the house?
It would have been court-ordered that we no longer be together because of accusations made by her ex-husband.
Could you just give me the month, sir?
Mid-March.
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 Okay. Now, Ms. Knoll, he says he was no longer living there on a full-time basis after mid-March because your former husband alleged that he had abused your child while on either custody or visitation period with you, and he could no longer be in the house.
Correct.
When was that?
That was in March, but when he was not staying at my house, Mr. Dietz was staying at my mother's house.
So what?
So he was still staying in my mother's house or my house.
Well, that's not where he had the agreement to pay rent, in your mother's house.
Well, when the custody was over, Mr. Dietz came back.
When was that?
I believe the beginning of June.
And when did he leave permanently?
August 12th.
Did you come back in June full-time, sir?
I don't believe I ever came back full-time, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Knoll, when was the last time he gave you money?
He gave me money sporadically, and I never wrote it down. It was very...
So you don't know how much money he gave you?
I think he gave me approximately $500 for the whole entire time he lived with me.
Miss Knoll, that is not what you do in court, madam. Because this arrangement didn't work out and because he went back with his wife, you can't come to court and say, well, he gave me money sporadically. You have what you allege to be a contract.
Yes.
So that what you have to do is when he gives you money, you have to write it down, memorialize it, give him a receipt, write down exactly how much he gets so you know how much his debt is. You can't come in here and say to me, well, I think he gave me $500 while we were together in February, which is the day you say he signed this, and March he left, but then he came back in June. Now, he says he owes a month's rent. That's what he says. And you don't know how much he owes you.
Well, this is exactly what happened. We were supposed to get married August 12th or 11th. And when we got married, we were going to claim our taxes together, and that's what he had told my mother he was going to pay her back with, was his tax check.
You didn't get married. You didn't get a joint tax check. And you have no idea of how much he actually owes you. So what do you want me to do?
Okay.
Listen, you make bad judgments and sometimes bad things happen, madam. You made a very bad judgment. You don't meet somebody in a bar and allow him to move in 12 hours later into your home.
I realize that.
Okay. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $400, which is the amount that the defendant acknowledges that he owes you. That's all. Step out.
Excuse, sir, wait.
21-year-old Ryan Lapp is suing his ex-girlfriend's friend, Mark Childress, for medical bills due to an assault. Mark says Ryan had been making harassing phone calls to his friend.
Order. All rise.
Now, this is case number 368 on the calendar in the matter of Lapp versus Childress. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat, please.
Mr. Lapp, it is your claim that the defendant assaulted you in your home.
Yes, that's true.
Mr. Childress acknowledges that he came to your home. He said you became confrontational.
Not true at all. Sorry.
Not so sure about it. In any event, what I gather from his answer is, if you got a whooping, you deserved it. That'd be a fair statement, sir.
Well, I'm
Let's
disappointed.
see. Mr. Lapp, according to what I read, you and some friends were hanging out in your house. And I don't know what you were doing and hanging around in your house, whether you were drinking or smoking or doing some drugs or whatever you were doing, but you decided to make some prank calls.
Yes.
On what evening was this, sir?
I believe it was on the evening of the 14th of July.
And you made a prank call, one of those prank calls, to the defendant's home. I assume that it's this young lady who was living in your home with you at the time.
Yes, Your Honor.
And she's a married lady?
2 days.
To this gentleman here,
Yes, Your Honor.
who was then stationed in Iraq. Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Tell me your name.
Ronald McCart.
What is your rank, sir?
I'm a specialist.
When did you get back from Iraq?
December 12th, ma'am.
Okay. So you called the defendant's home, and you got this young lady on the phone. And what is your name?
Allison.
Now, did you know Allison?
Yeah, I did.
What had you been drinking, smoking, or snorting that night, Mr. Lapp?
No snorting or smoking anything other than cigarettes, but we were drinking gin that night.
And who was there?
It was me, my witness Andrew, and my neighbor from across the way, and my girlfriend.
What did you say to Allison when you prank called her, sir?
I
Look
don't
at
know.
me.
There was a lot of prank phone calls being made, but I mean, I was on one of them. And what I said,
I want to know what was said when you called Allison.
I
Look
can't
at-
remember exactly, but I did say something to
You
the
don't
effect.
remember. So let's hear Allison. Allison, you remember July 14th?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
Who called you?
Mr. Lapp called my cell phone.
How did he have your cell phone number? Do you know?
Ryan is a previous boyfriend of mine.
Who's Ryan?
Mr. Lapp.
When did you stop seeing him?
In March.
March of '06?
Mm-hmm.
And when did you meet your husband?
In May.
Okay, so he had your cell phone number. What did he say to you, Allison, when he called?
He said that I hope that they shoot your desert rat boyfriend in the head and that they don't find his body so he can't be buried here.
Not nice.
No, definitely not. Shouldn't have ever even been said, and that was totally unright on my part.
So, Allison, what did you do when you got that message?
I was very upset. A lot of crying.
Did you tell Mr. Childress?
Yes.
Okay. So what'd you do?
I listened to the tape.
Oh, she had it on tape.
There was 16, 17 vulgar, sexually abusive, and just derogatory phone calls over a period of an hour and a half made to the house. Very explicit, very sexually demeaning.
Why, Mr. Lapp?
Like I said, I couldn't tell you why. I wasn't even on any of those phone calls except for that one phone call where I did say what I said about her now husband.
But you gave the phone to
No.
your friends.
No,
or
I
you
didn't.
called the number.
No, other people have her number other than me. That did not come from me. They all know her.
Did you make phone calls?
Me?
You! What am I looking at? Who else is there?
Yeah. I made about 2 or 3 myself. But everybody did have her phone number that was there, and they were all using their separate phones.
I didn't ask about anybody else. I asked about you.
Yeah, I made 2 or 3 phone calls.
Stand up. Why?
We just had we just had something against her. I don't know what it was, but we just didn't really like her.
Who cares? I don't like you. I wouldn't call you and say nasty things on your cell phone.
That's fair. We just, we were drinking, and it just...
Because you were acting like idiots, and that's what happens to idiots when they drink.
Yeah.
When they drink, they don't know what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
They don't know what they're saying, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes they become confrontational,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Now I'll hear from you.
After listening to this hour and a half of phone calls, I was so disappointed in Ryan. We'd invited him to our house. We've fed him. We've taken care of him. And it just really disappointed me. I couldn't imagine why he would sink so low. And then to talk about a gentleman who's not here, who's serving our country, that gives him the right to say the things that he did.
Yeah, sitting on his porch and drinking gin.
Exactly.
Right.
I thought this couldn't be the Ryan I knew.
So you went over there to see if somebody else creeped into his skin.
Well, my son-in-law lives in the same apartment that Ryan does. And we had an open door policy. They come to our house, we go to their house.
So you went over there.
I went over there and
Look at me, Mr. Childress.
wanted to see what was going on.
So what happened when you got there?
I asked Ryan, I go, do you know who I am? Because he was in bed. I saw that his girlfriend had just left.
So you went into his bedroom.
Yes, which is right next to my son-in-law's bedroom.
How did you get into the house?
The house is open.
Okay.
It's
All right,
it's like
do you remember,
Yes.
Mr. Lapp, what happened? Because you were pretty drunk that night, according
Yeah,
to
I
you.
wasn't that drunk in the morning, though.
Oh, so this
Maybe
was
a little
the morning.
hungover. This was a little hungover. Yes, when he assaulted me, it was in the morning.
Go ahead.
I woke up to actually, my girlfriend was leaving the house. Once she had left the house,
Was she there when you were making these calls,
Yes,
these
she
crank
was.
calls?
Yes, she was. She was there for part of the night. Then she left and didn't come back.
Was she
later that
making
night.
any of the crank calls?
She was on some of those prank phone calls. What had happened was she had left that morning. He came in after that, and I thought somebody was coming to my bedroom. I thought it was my girlfriend returning because she forgot something.
It wasn't.
No, it wasn't. He locked the door behind him as he came in. Said, do you know who I am? I said, yeah. He told me to stand up. I stood up. He socked me once in the mouth. I fell to the bed. He continued to hold me down and punch me. I couldn't even move. I mean, he punched me 20, 25 times in the side of my face, in my stomach, all through my neck, my jaw. I have the hospital reports of the cervical strain and the contusions to the head and neck. I was on medication for about 3 weeks, which caused me
Not
not
going to
to be
make
able
any more prank phone calls, are you?
No. Prank phone calls are bad. Like I said, it was a stupid mistake, but I don't believe it justifies someone putting their hands on somebody.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
How many times did you hit him?
Probably between 10 and 12 times.
More than that.
It was a lot more than 10 to 12. You could hear Mark hitting Ryan.
Suck it up.
And later today,
When was the last time your husband worked full-time?
A year and a half, 2 years ago.
Well, that's ridiculous.
Why is that ridiculous?
It's ridiculous not to work when you have 2 children.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Ryan Lapp claims his ex-girlfriend's friend, Mark Childress, entered his home without permission and assaulted him. Mark does not dispute the charge.
Okay, now your version, sir.
I asked Ryan if he knew who I was, because I know he had been drinking the night before, and I asked him what was going on. And immediately he said, I didn't say anything, and flailed his arms up. I took a defensive posture and acted accordingly. I thought he was going to attack me, the way he had been talking on the phone.
I don't buy that, Mr. Children. I don't buy that. You went into his bedroom.
That's correct.
After that, he also proceeded to go out and try to assault him. It's not like he just came in there just to beat me up.
I assume you called the police?
Yes, I called the police right after it happened.
And I
Which he
assume the
also threatened
police,
me not to
shh,
do.
quiet.
Okay.
And I assume the police came, and I assume you played them the recordings?
Yes, Your Honor.
And they did nothing?
They failed to press charges against either one of us.
Correct. Do you work, Mr. Lapp?
Yes, I do.
Who do you work for?
Fry's Electronics in Sacramento.
How long have you worked for them?
I've worked there about 4 months now.
You have medical insurance?
No, I do not.
Have you paid any of these bills?
No, I have not. I don't have the funds to do so.
I have $2,099 in medical bills.
Yes.
Do you have any photographs of your injuries?
I did on a cell phone that's broken now, so there's no way to get those.
How many times did you hit him, Mr. Childress?
Probably between 10 and 12 times.
More than that. Way more.
Like, I was in the living room when this all happened because, like, you have, like, where I slept in the apartment, you have to walk past me to get to his room. And when he walked in there, he locked the door, and I heard a lot of, beating and screaming, him telling him to get off. But there was a lot more hits. You could hear Mark hitting Ryan. It was a lot more than 10 or 12.
Mr. Lapp, on a sympathy scale of 1 to 10, maybe you're a -1. You understand that? To me. You too. Because the pain that you can cause somebody as a result of making crank phone calls to them, and prank phone calls, especially the kind that you did with regard to this young man who was very far away from home and whose life was on the line, so that you two idiots could sit on your porch and drink gin. The things that you said about him are outrageous. And while I understand Mr. Childress's anger at you, the law doesn't give him the right to go over to your home and to assault you. There's no question that the police were so outraged at the phone calls that they winked at the assault. But quite frankly, I can't. You are responsible for his medical bills. Now, then, the only thing that I have to make a judgment about is whether you are also responsible for his pain and suffering, because his medical bills are $2,000. He wants $5,000. That he's not getting. Because there is emotional injury and there is physical injury, and you suffered physical injury as a result of this assault. Did this young lady sue you for emotional injury?
She did not.
You think that one can be as dramatic as the other?
Yeah.
Well, so the swollen face, the black and blue, whatever, suck it up. But Mr. Childress is going to pay your medical bills. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,000. That's all.
Thank you, Your Honor. Parties are excused. You may step out.
I wanted to find out what he was trying to do by tormenting this young 18-year-old girl.
It scared me. It definitely scared me. Like, I mean, that's why I said I had pain and suffering, because I couldn't sleep correctly for a couple days after that.
It was just totally immature and unfair for what they did.
Oh, I won't be making prank phone calls. I mean, you live and learn.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Carson versus Harris. Step forward, please.
Mitchell Carson is suing the mother of his child, Michelle Harris, and her husband, Todd Harris, for the return of attorney fees for a failed adoption.
Mr. Carson, you and Mrs. Harris have a child together. How
Correct,
old
ma'am.
is that child?
He's 8 years old, ma'am.
Did you ever live with him?
No.
This is your claim. The mother of your child, Miss Harris, is married to Mr. Harris. They've been married for how long?
3 years, Your Honor.
Do you have any children other than this child?
Yes, 2.
Your former girlfriend, you weren't married,
No.
is that right? And you spoke about the possibility of her husband adopting your son. And you thought about it for a while. Ultimately, you agreed that that might be a good idea. And you went ahead and hired a lawyer.
She hired the lawyer. She has to petition the lawyer.
You paid for the lawyer?
I did, because they said that they couldn't afford it.
She subsequently changed her mind
Correct.
about the adoption, and you want that money back.
Correct.
Why did you change your mind about the adoption?
We never did change our mind, Your Honor. We simply moved out of the area. I had been searching for work for a good 4 years and couldn't find anything but maybe temp work or part-time. We couldn't afford to take care of our children, so we started looking elsewhere for work, and Oregon had a great rate of employment, higher wages, lower cost of living, so we decided to move there and then pursue the adoption when we got settled.
Mr. Carson, when was the last time you saw your son?
I believe it was about 3 years ago.
Why?
We just had such a lack of communication together, and she lived about 100 miles away, and it just made it real difficult for us to communicate together. And that was probably a lot of my fault, because I should have remained involved. Okay. But that's why the end result was the adoption.
Mr. Carson, when was the last time you supported your son?
I pay child support every month.
How much do you pay?
I pay $400 a month.
Is he up to date in his child support?
I think he's a little bit behind, but not much.
I believe him when he says he pays child support. So you're not able to use this lawyer?
Correct. What it ended up happening was I paid for the attorney, and then they sent me some documents, which I signed. It was just simple, one form that I had to sign to my release of interest, or whatever you'd like to call it.
Termination of parental rights.
Correct. And then it was on her. And about 6 months later or so, I contacted her attorney, and her attorney had said at that point she hadn't spoken with her, had no contact with her at all, and actually at that moment said, you know, I don't even think she's going to do this. Which is fine. If she doesn't want to do the adoption, I mean, I'm completely capable and okay with paying child support, you know, until he's 18 years old. But when she came to me with the idea of doing the adoption and I agreed to it, I thought in good faith, when she said they couldn't afford it, that I paid for it, that they would go through with it. And then I called her and asked her why she wasn't doing it. It was at that point that she said it was because, you know, financially they couldn't do it.
So they needed your child support to help support the household?
Sure. Correct. And also at that point, I had contacted Michelle to find out what was going on, and then she told me she was moving. According to our documents, she has to give me 30 days written notice of moving. I had no idea she was going to move until I contacted her to ask her what was happening.
Well, that may be written into your contract. However, since you haven't seen your son in 3 years, it really doesn't make much difference. Mr. Harris, are you working now?
No, not at the present time.
Are you working now?
Yes, I am, Your Honor.
For whom?
I work for a company that deals with clinical technology services for
How much
a
do
hospital.
you earn?
$15.25 an hour, and I support all 5 of us.
No, you don't support all 5 of you. He helps support all 5 of you. When was the last time your husband worked full-time? And
I would
where?
say it was for a landscaping company in Olympia, and it was a year and a half, 2 years ago.
I'm not sure of the exact date.
Well, she says it's a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Well, that's ridiculous. It's
Why?
ridiculous.
Why is that ridiculous?
It's ridiculous not to work when you have 2 children. When did you move?
We moved in March of '06.
So you moved from, just a minute, so you moved from one place where he can't get a job for a year to another place, and now he's still not working.
No,
Doesn't that
no,
clue?
that's not exactly correct. I worked for a company in Portland as a steam cleaner. I did that for 2.5 months. I also worked doing mill shutdowns for a temporary job. It's not like I haven't worked.
So I'm glad you're working. I'm glad everything is wonderful with you. The strong probability exists that they're not going to let you off the hook so fast.
Ma'am, can I add something, please?
Yeah.
The reason why they told me why he's having a hard time finding work and why they couldn't do the adoption is because when they moved to Portland, Michelle told me that he had a warrant out for his arrest. She told me that's what kept us from going into court. Her attorney told me that when they moved to
Just
Portland...
a second. Well, that's very easy to
Am I in
figure
jail?
out. Shh. Turn around. What was the warrant for, Miss Harris? I didn't speak to you. I didn't speak to you. I said, what was the warrant for, Mrs. Harris?
His warrant was for parole violation from 1996.
When did you know about his parole violation?
We didn't know about it until we moved to Oregon. However, we discussed past legal issues with the attorney, and she said that that shouldn't make a difference. Also, just to clarify, we had no agreement with him to pay him back.
Well, but no, just a second. But you had an agreement to pursue the adoption.
Correct.
That's your agreement.
I didn't.
And
You wanted my son.
No, just Mr. Carson. Shh, Mr. Carson.
Sorry, ma'am.
I'm just saying, Your Honor, at no time had I talked to Mitch about the adoption.
Then you can sit down, because you're not working anyway. She's working. She'll pay. Sit down. Sit down. You had an agreement with him that in exchange for giving up his parental rights, your husband would assume the parental responsibility, which includes support. And what happened was it became very secondary in your mind with all the other trouble that you have. You have now 3 children in your house. You're working at $15 an hour. Not great. But you can't do that. If he's giving you the money to pay for the lawyer, which he did, because you agreed to pursue this matter and then change your mind, in my mind, you've breached an agreement with him.
We never made an agreement to...
Just a second. That's why you're here.
We never said we wouldn't do the adoption, Your Honor. Circumstances
Then when you...
stopped it.
Listen to me. When you move back to the jurisdiction where he can use the lawyer that he paid for, you could sue him for the money. Right now, you're going to pay for the lawyer. How much was it?
The total amount that we ended up paying the attorney was $1,062, ma'am.
We weren't living off of his child support. We honestly wanted to do the adoption.
Well,
and
listen
when we
to me, Miss Harris. You've been married once?
Twice. This is my second marriage.
You weren't married to him so that you had, I would consider, 3 relationships. 2 marriages, 1 relationship. Is that fair? You have 3 children?
Yes.
How old are you?
I am 34.
The likelihood of this man celebrating your 25th wedding anniversary is 0. So that, as far as I'm concerned, it would be very unwise for him to adopt this child. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,062.
Thank you, Your
That's
Honor.
all.
16-year-old Manaz Soleimani and her mother, Mary Safapur, is suing 15-year-old Carrie McAtee and her mother, Kathy. Manaz says Carrie wrecked her car on the way home from a party. She also says Carrie had been smoking pot.
This is case number 61 on the calendar in the matter of Soleimani versus Safapur versus McAtee. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Have a seat, please.
Bird, we have another case of Dumb and Dumber. Dumb and Dumber. The junior ones. What's your name?
Manaz.
And how old are you?
16.
And you?
Carrie.
How old are you?
15.
Did you have permission to take your car out that evening?
No, ma'am.
So you mean you took your mother's car?
My sister's.
How old is your sister?
She is 17.
So you took your sister's car without permission?
Yes, ma'am.
But it wasn't your sister's car because your sister's 17. She can't own a car.
Oh.
So the car belonged to your mother.
Yeah.
So you took your mother's car without permission?
Yes.
And you went to a?
I went to pick up Carrie and her friend and then to go to a party.
So you went to a party?
Yes.
Did you have a driver's license?
No, ma'am.
And you went to the party?
Yes.
And you were with her?
I was at her house before we left for the party, and we both went and picked up another friend.
And while you were at the party, you were drinking?
Yes.
What were you drinking?
Alcohol.
Got where we're going?
Oh, I'm already there.
And you had too much to drink, so it was time to leave?
No, the cops came.
Cops came. Police came. Now, this party was at someone's home?
Yes,
A boy or a girl?
a boy.
Let me guess, his parents weren't home.
Yeah, yes, they were.
They were home. Why did the police show up at the party?
Because everyone was smoking and drinking and...
Smoking what?
Weed.
Smoking marijuana?
Yes.
Where were the parents when this was going on?
The mom was home buying the alcohol for kids, and I don't know where was the dad, but I know the mom was home.
Now, was Kerry smoking marijuana?
Yes.
Were you?
Yes.
Honest. So the police were called, the police were coming, and then it was time for you to leave. You didn't want to drive home because you had too much to drink?
Yes.
So Kerry drove home.
Yes.
But on the way home, she hit a car.
Yes.
And that's what this case is about, because you feel as if it's appropriate for Kerry and or her mother to pay for half of the damage to both your car and the car that was hit.
Exactly.
And Kerry's mother says,
no.
Why?
Because I was misled at the time. I had had several conversations with Mary before these two went to this party. They'd only been friends
Who's
for a
Mary?
few weeks.
Which one's Mary?
Is a mother.
Okay.
Because we were both concerned about what our daughters were getting into in their recent behavior. I was fully led to believe that Naz was a licensed driver. Several times she drove my child home from school. They both went to a party in another town.
Who led you?
Mary herself told me what a good driver Naz was.
Let's talk about the 29th of December.
Well, I'm believing that Naz is a licensed driver, so I agreed to pay for half of the deductible.
Just a second. Let's look at the objective data. This young lady has told me that without permission, she took her sister's car, who's 17, so it's really her mother's car, without permission.
Mm-hmm.
Now, your daughter knows that she doesn't have a license, correct?
Correct.
Your daughter knows that it's against the law to smoke marijuana. Is that correct?
Correct.
Your daughter knows that she should not have gotten behind the wheel of a car to drive. Correct.
Correct.
And your daughter was the one who was driving while under the influence of a controlled substance when she hit a car.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Correct.
And if what you're telling me is you do not believe that she bears at least partial responsibility, I would like you to explain why.
I do believe she is responsible for what is not covered and paid for by the insurance policy on the vehicle by the owner.
Okay. Now let me explain something to you, madam. She is not obligated, first of all, to put this claim through her insurance. Even if she did, it is more than likely that they would disclaim on the policy because the person who drove the car was not a licensed driver.
Well, Your Honor, I don't mean to interrupt you. She needs to take better control of her own daughters. And had I not been misled by her in the beginning about Naz having her own driver's license, not carrying her sister's in her wallet, this relationship would have ended long before that. My daughter would not have been in that party or that car.
Are you... Listen, get your head out from where it shouldn't be. Your daughter would have been there. If you think that your daughter wouldn't have been at a party smoking your daughter wasn't smoking marijuana because she let them use the car. Your daughter's 15 years old. I would be more concerned with my 15-year-old daughter going to a party where the police had to be called to break up the party where there was marijuana being smoked and alcohol being served than I would over the responsibility to pay for half the damage that she did to the car. So we have dumb, dumber, and dumber. Okay.
Can
what?
you do me a favor?
What?
Can I have a copy of this?
Yeah, you want to show it to someone?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Good. Let me see the estimates on the damage to the car, please.
This is the estimate of the other party's car.
Okay.
This is the check that I paid, and this is the estimate of my car.
Okay. May I have it, please? What?
You have some pictures?
I don't need pictures. I got the picture. What do you want to do with the tape of this? Tell me what you want to do with it.
Your Honor, I have teenage children.
Yeah. Got it. I got it.
And teenage nieces and nephews. I want them to see this one.
I got it. Stupid people.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I'm telling you that you better keep better control of your daughter because your daughter is out of control. Do you understand?
And later today,
What were you doing with her husband in the afternoon?
He called me and said Melanie was out of town and he could come by and pick up the flyers.
Stupid!
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. 16-year-old Manaz Soleimani says her former friend, 15-year-old Carrie McAtee, wrecked her car. Manaz says Carrie had been smoking pot.
Okay. Your Honor, may I say something?
No, you said enough. You don't want to appear any more stupid than you already appear. Now, let's get to you. You got to keep better control of your daughter.
That's right.
You understand that?
Yes.
Your 16-year-old daughter and your 17-year-old daughter shouldn't have a car.
She has her driver license, my older one.
And this one?
No, this one has...
This one?
Yes. They already told Naz not to hang out with Kathy.
Just a second. I'm talking about allowing her to use a car.
Yes, you're right.
You've done that.
No, I didn't let her to drive the car.
Are you telling me that you've never allowed her to drive the car before?
Alone, no. Never alone.
With whom?
With me. Because she has her permit.
She has a learner's permit?
Yes. So she never, that's why they drive. Miriam gives both of them a ride to a school.
Listen to me very carefully. Something's not happening right with this car. So I wouldn't let either one of them use it. You understand what I'm saying to you? It's up to you. She's half responsible for the damage she did to the car. She was under the influence of drugs. She shouldn't have gotten behind the wheel. She shouldn't have been using the drugs to begin with. She knew she had no license. She's responsible for half the damage that she caused. But I'm telling you that you better keep better control of your daughter, because your daughter is out of control. Because not only was she smoking marijuana that night, she was also using alcohol, and she was in no condition to drive, which is what put her behind the wheel in the first place. Do you understand?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,425.50. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
You go first. You go first. I go first. I do believe that we were partially responsible.
Both of the girls did something stupid, and both of them are responsible for this.
She's lucky that my daughter was not injured.
She never drove by herself. I always drive her to school, and everyone knows.
She had been drinking like straight Bacardi and had been smoking.
I got grounded. My mom took away all my stuff.
I hadn't been smoking as much as either of the girls.
Parents should be more careful, because drinking is very easy. They can drink all the time, and they can buy weeds all the time as well.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Carter versus Powell. Step forward, please.
Travel agent Trenace Carter is suing ministers Melody and Brendan Powell for loss of business and slander. The Powells are countersuing for slander and pain and suffering.
Miss Carter, I gather you are suing for some sort of breach of contract, and the contract would be an oral contract that you had with the defendants to plan a trip as a travel agent for a large group of people that was supposed to go on a cruise. Is that generally correct?
No. I put together a cruise, and I contacted Melody because I needed speakers. That was the first contact I had with them. So it was my cruise to start off with, and they ran with it.
So what's your problem?
They have slandered my name and said that I'm not a travel agent. They have defamed my character, and I have been receiving emails of threatening of communication and just all kinds of disruption.
Well, what happened? Did you plan the trip for them, or did you not plan the trip for them?
I planned the trip for a group of people for myself, and I contacted her because I didn't have any idea how to contact the speaker.
So you planned a trip for a group of people yourself as a travel agent?
Yes.
But you didn't have the people?
I had a mailing list of people I needed speakers.
You didn't have anybody signed up for the cruise
No,
yet?
not yet. Not till I started advertising.
So you were planning a cruise in your mind. You didn't have any people yet. You had a mailing list of potential customers.
Right.
You contacted them because you wanted them to provide speakers. You're ministers? You have a ministry? Okay. What was the contract that you had with them?
There was no contract with them.
So what are you suing them for?
I'm suing them because there's some personal matters came into play, and that's when the drama started.
Okay. So you're suing them for saying that you were not a travel agent?
Yes.
And what else?
Defamation of character.
What were they saying about
They were saying that I was not a travel agent, I was a liar, I was just everything that they could come up with, they were saying.
Me.
Here's an email that she sent to a cruise line.
This is the cruise line that you contacted because you wanted to put together a cruise with the cruise line. So you didn't want any of their church parishioners to go on your cruise?
I want that.
Just answer my question. You did not want their church parishioners to go on your cruise. They were not on your mailing list.
Correct.
Okay. You see the cruise line. Well, this email says that they want a $50 refund that one of their parishioners gave to you in order to secure a spot on this cruise. And they're saying that this parishioner called and asked for their $50 deposit back, and you told their parishioner it had already been sent to Carnival Cruise Line. And then they said that they checked with Carnival Cruise, and they don't take a $50 deposit, they take a $150 deposit, and it is their belief that you are embezzling their clients of funds in order to benefit yourself. And we ask that Carnival investigate the situation and this person who may be pretending to be an agent of Carnival Cruise Line.
I have a contract from Carnival that has my deposits as an agent. This states that I am a contract agent. There are my contact numbers and my IATA numbers. Those are the only way that we can book groups.
Are you a licensed travel agent?
Yes.
What about this woman's $50 deposit? Where did it go?
It went back to her. Here is her file.
When did you send it back to her?
I took it back to her personally.
Well, this letter was sent on April 12th, and you brought it back on April 16th?
I took it back to her on April 16th.
4 days after this email was sent. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, is this the slander that you're talking about?
Yes, and
well, I would like you to tell me what happened in this arrangement that you were having with them, because clearly some of the people that were supposed to go on this cruise that you were trying to put together were their parishioners.
What happened was, the first part of April, I emailed Melanie that I had flyers ready.
What kind of flyers?
I'd worked on advertisement flyers and postcards and things of that matter. Called Carnival, ordered postcards, ordered letterhead, and I printed all the information on those cards and letterhead. I emailed her to let her know she could come by and pick them up.
Just a second. What was she supposed to do with the flyers?
She was supposed to be giving them out.
To whom?
To who she was inviting to the cruise.
So that I was correct when I say that you were trying to put together a cruise, and some of their parishioners were supposed to be vacationers on that cruise.
Yes, so there were
all right. That's what I...
There were several churches.
I don't care if there were several churches. I asked you about hers. You said no. It was my understanding that you were trying to put together a trip, and at least some of their parishioners were supposed to go on this trip. You prepared flyers for them to distribute to their parishioners, along with maybe other people as well, and then something happened. Right?
Correct.
Okay. What happened? You called her and let her know that there were flyers. You emailed her that the flyers were ready. She wasn't there. I'm going to cut to the chase now because my head's spinning. She wasn't there. Her husband decided to come over instead. And one thing led to another, and you spent part of an afternoon together. Went one place, went another place. Anyway, she comes back into town, and according to her, she got very annoyed because her husband was not supposed to be at your house, was not supposed to be out to lunch with you, was not supposed to be doing anything else with you, and she canceled your participation in the cruise. So far, is that reasonable?
Yes.
Okay. And then, this is what you're complaining about.
Yes, and there have been several people that have been calling me.
You can't tell me what those people said to you, madam? That's hearsay. You have anything else? Any other emails that you want to show me?
Yes, the ones that she has been harassing me with.
I'd like to see them, please. What were you doing with her husband in the afternoon?
He called me and said Melanie was out of town and he could come by and pick up the flyers. I said, well, I'm at home. You can come by and pick them up. I said I was supposed to be gone, but things didn't work out for me to go. He said, well, I can drop you by the DMV. That was no problem.
What DMV? I didn't hear anything about a DMV.
Right.
I said, home, not home. What?
When he came, he said, well, that was where I was supposed to go, so he was checking to see if I was home to come by and pick up the flyers.
So he came over and he got the flyers.
Right. He offered to drop me at the DMV.
So he
while
offered
he was
to
on
take
the
you
phone.
someplace where you wanted to go.
Right. That was when he gave me the check for the deposit, the $50. And he took the flyers.
So you went to the DMV. He took you to the DMV.
was closed. They had went to lunch.
Oh.
So we went over to McDonald's and picked up food, and we sat at their house 20 minutes waiting
Okay,
for
so
DMV
just
open.
a second. So the DMV was closed.
Right.
You went and got some lunch, and then you went back to their house?
Correct.
And had your lunch in their
Right.
house, waited until the Department of Motor Vehicles opened again.
Right.
Then he took you back to Department of Motor Vehicles.
Right.
And then where did you go?
Went home.
Then you went home.
Right.
Stupid! It's not harassment. She's tired of you. She's tired of the explanations. Listen.
Well, I had stopped communicating with her completely.
Good. Stop communicating. Block her emails. Can't you do that? Put a block?
Yeah, you can
Say, I don't
block.
want to hear from her anymore?
You can block.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what you have to do. Don't want to hear from you anymore. Listen, you had a business arrangement that didn't go anywhere.
Right.
There was no contract. You did a foolish thing. You did a foolish thing. You got angry. You retaliated. You don't have to see each other anymore, right? You don't like each other. You're not going to do business with each other anymore. Correct?
That's right.
Good. Goodbye.
Much excuse. You may step out.
28-year-old restaurant manager Jason Bainbridge is suing his ex-wife, Human Resources rep Jennifer Simpkins, for filing bankruptcy on a vehicle in his name. Jennifer says Jason wasn't paying child support, so she had no other choice.
Come to order. All rise. Yeah, it's case number 52 on the calendar in the matter of Bainbridge versus Simpkins. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Mr. Bainbridge, you and the defendant had been married and you have 2 children together, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
What your complaint alleges is, pursuant to the judgment of divorce, your former wife got possession of a car.
Yes, ma'am.
And she was to make all the payments on the car, maintain the insurance on the car, and you were held harmless by the court for any further responsibility for the car because it was going to be her car.
Yes, ma'am.
Subsequently, you ascertained that she filed for bankruptcy and listed the credit company that had made the car loan as a creditor, and that debt was discharged in bankruptcy, her bankruptcy.
Yes, ma'am.
And you are on the hook for the car.
Yes, ma'am.
And you think that's unfair.
Yes, ma'am.
And Ms. Simpkins states that she was forced to file for bankruptcy because of your lack of child support, and that you were noticed in the bankruptcy as someone who had to be noticed because of your on-paper obligation.
Right at the time, I was at NTC.
You were what?
I was in the military away on training.
And therefore, she's not responsible. So I need some information from both of you. When were you married?
We were married March 10th of 96.
March 30th.
30th, okay.
I always should ask the woman that question. March 30th of 1996. When were you separated?
July 25th of 1999.
That you remember?
Exactly. The date and time.
Any particular reason you remember that date and time?
Oh, it's when World War III started.
That's when the locks were changed.
Yeah.
That's when the locks were changed. July 25th, 1999. And when were you divorced?
September of 2000.
And who's going to show me a copy of the judgment of divorce?
I will.
Are you still in the armed forces, sir?
No, ma'am, I'm not.
When were you discharged?
February of this year.
Do you have an order of support for the children, sir? Because this judgment of divorce indicates that you have deferred all issues of custody and support to a juvenile and domestic relations court. Was that ever done?
Yes, ma'am.
You have a copy of that order?
I do not have a copy of my child
With
support.
me. He's ordered to pay $805 a month if he exercises 90-plus days of visitation a year with the children. And if he does not, he's ordered to pay $896 a month. And he does not. He's never exercised visitation with the children.
All right. Ms. Simpkins, when did you file for bankruptcy?
We filed in September of 2001.
Why?
And it was discharged. Why?
Yeah.
Because bills just got out of, I just couldn't make it anymore.
So for how many months did he not pay child support?
He didn't pay it at all for 3 months, and then I got...
That's incorrect, Your Honor.
And then
Go ahead.
I got in contact with his commanding officer. I had to forward documents, and they
I said 805 because at that point my mother was helping me with child care, and that was a fair amount, and that I could support the kids on. And then later on, the 805 was coming, and then Jason and I talked, and my mother wasn't able to watch the kids, and he was supposed to bump his child support up to the 896. And that never happened, and the military said they couldn't do anything about it. And so I was kind of stuck until he came home. And
well,
then
whatever. It was 805. You were getting $805 a month pursuant to a court order, and it was coming right out of his pay.
Right. I was getting, yeah, but that was almost $100 short a month.
Well, he says that he's got proof that he paid that money.
Here's a signed letter from me and my wife, our ex-wife, the month that I went into the military. As far as my taxes were concerned, our tax return was going to be applied for.
Then he still didn't pay after that.
Well, it seems, Ms. Simpkins, that based upon this agreement that the two of you signed, this wasn't somebody who didn't pay child support. He paid child support, and when he was going into the military and there was going to be a hiatus, the two of you made an arrangement, whereas his tax returns were going to be split. You were going to get so much money, and he was going to get so much money on the returns. It's not as if he was a deadbeat.
No,
so I find that your excuse that it was his fault that you filed for bankruptcy somewhat disingenuous.
Well, that was for a previous. I mean, after he went in and that money was applied, there was still no child support until I hunted him down.
You don't have to hunt him down. What you have to do is you have to apply for your allotment. That's what you do.
He had told me that he was going to Fort Bragg.
Yes.
He didn't go to Fort Bragg.
Well, who do you think that he has the ability to say, I want to go to Fort Bragg?
Well, no, but they told me that's where he told me that's where he was going to be stationed.
Maybe that's where they told him he was going. You think he was trying to fool you?
Yes.
You think he was trying to fool you? No.
When I went away for basic training, Your Honor, I was going to Fort Jackson, and that's where I told her it was. And they found I was colorblind. I couldn't go.
Listen to me very carefully, madam. You may have filed for bankruptcy, and between you and the creditor who you owed money to on the car, the bankruptcy court relieved you of that obligation. However, you have a judgment of divorce.
Right.
You agreed to accept sole responsibility for the car.
Yes, ma'am.
Your judgment of divorce provides that if you don't do that, you are to indemnify him. Make him whole. Because it's your car. Where's the car, by the way?
We turned it in. I turned it into the car.
When did you turn it in?
Oh, gosh. I want to say September of that year.
September of what year?
2000.
And when did you file for bankruptcy?
Not until 2001.
So if you turned it in, you turned it in at the exact same time as you were divorced. And then all you wanted to do was clean your slate. So you turned the car in and you obligated him at the moment that you got a divorce.
No.
Yeah, you did. No. Sure you did. That was slick. Oh, that was slick.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You assume the responsibility yourself. You're a big girl. You're big enough to make... That's baloney.
That is not.
That's baloney.
And later today...
I don't care whether they're divorced or not. If she were the custodial parent and he came to me and said, well, we're not divorced yet, so I'm not paying for anything, I would wipe up the floor with him.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Jason Bainbridge says ex-wife Jennifer Simpkins filed bankruptcy on a car in his name. Jason says the creditor is making him responsible for payments.
Why didn't you consent to him having both cars in the judgment of divorce?
Because the divorce was bad and messy, and it was just...
Why didn't you say, here, you take both cars? Maybe you can sell them, maybe you won't get stuck with it. Instead, he's singing along for a year thinking you've got the car,
No,
you're making payments.
No, he knew.
You're making payments on the car.
Right.
You're making payments on the car. He's making payments on the other car, I assume.
No,
There were
that car,
two
he
cars.
turned that car in for repossession as well, so he wasn't making payments on that
That's not true, Your Honor. My father actually paid it off.
after it was repossessed.
So somebody paid it off, so somebody got it off his credit. Well, that's what your parents should have done with your obligation.
No, it's not their job.
It's not his job. You assume the responsibility yourself. You're a big girl.
He
You're
wasn't
big enough
paying
to
child
make...
support.
That's baloney.
That is not.
That's baloney.
No, ma'am.
How much did you owe on the car?
According to them, it's $4,353.10.
Let me see it. And that will clear your credit?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you called them with regard to settling this account?
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, and what do they say it will take to settle it?
Just the $43.50, what's stated on that piece of paper.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $4,353.10. Madam, you have to be a grown-up. You obligate yourself to do something, you have to do it. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
It was World War III. We didn't get along very well, but she needed to take care of her end of the obligation.
He left a lot of times, and I changed the locks, and that was it.
This is only one of many things that she maliciously did to me.
There was other women involved.
I can't buy a house. I can't get a car. I got to get judgment on my credit, so now I got to get an attorney to get that off my credit.
For our children, he doesn't bother with them now, so I don't think he'll ever be a major part of their life.
It's been an everyday occurrence as far as her trying to get her payment on the vehicle. I'm glad it's finally over with and justice is prevailed.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Tarter versus Hughes. Step forward, please.
Bus driver Catherine Tarter is suing her estranged son-in-law, 25-year-old salesman Donald Hughes, for the cost of a trailer. Donald says Catherine is angry about his pending divorce from her daughter.
Ms. Tarter, the defendant is your soon-to-be ex-son-in-law. And
Yes.
according to your complaint, he owes you some money for a trailer. Is that right?
Yes.
The defendant says he's paid you a substantial amount of money for the trailer, doesn't owe you any more. You have the motorhome that went with the trailer. He doesn't have it in his possession. It's not on his property. I assume this is your daughter?
Yes.
How long have you been married?
4 years, Your Honor.
You have children?
Yes, I do.
How many children?
I have a 1.5-year-old daughter, and then I had 2 sons that came with the marriage that are still dear to me.
And who does that child live with?
I have sole custody.
Is that after a hearing, after a trial?
Yes.
Does their mother have visitation with the children?
No, she does. She has 2 hours supervised visits a week.
Does she exercise the visitation?
Sometimes.
Prior to the divorce, did you have a reasonable relationship with Mr. and Mrs. Tarter?
Yes, I did.
Is that right?
Yes.
How many children do you have?
I have 2 girls.
How many grandchildren do you have?
3.
How much money was this trailer?
It was $4,000.
Just for the trailer?
Just for the trailer, and the motorhome was $4,000, so they agreed upon $8,000.
And how much do you say it was, sir?
It was $4,000 altogether for both of them.
Is there a writing with regard to that?
We had a verbal agreement.
Is there a writing with regard to that, is my question.
No.
How much have you paid them for the trailer?
I paid them $1,950 for the trailer and the motorhome together.
But you only have
I only have the trailer.
the trailer. Did Mr. Hughes pay you $1,950?
No, ma'am.
How much did he pay you?
The motorhome broke down.
I'm not talking about the motorhome.
Okay, well,
He doesn't have the motorhome.
He paid us, I know, they returned it, so therefore all the payments that were paid individually towards the motorhome and the trailer were forfeited. And they were always...
Forfeited by whom?
By us. It was written down where when he paid us money, that $75 would go towards the motorhome and $75 would go towards the trailer. When one was given back in case they decided they couldn't afford it, or that it broke down, which the motorhome did, and they couldn't afford to fix it, they gave it back to us. So therefore, the motorhome payments, which were $425, was forfeited, and then $425 was credited towards the utility trailer.
All I'm asking you is that in writing someplace?
I typed up a legal contract because
Did he
at first
sign it?
He refused to sign it.
The answer is you do not have that in writing. Is that correct?
My daughter signed it, and
I don't care what your daughter signed, madam. I mean, I happen to think that you're missing a few screws, and I'm going to tell you why. You have a 1.5-year-old granddaughter. Your soon-to-be ex-son-in-law has sole custody, which suggests to me that if you want to maintain a relationship, and it seems to me you enjoyed a reasonable relationship with him before, if you want to enjoy a reasonable relationship with your granddaughter, you should keep him on your good side and not sue him, because it would appear to me that your daughter had to be a pretty deficient person in order to end up at the end of a custody dispute with 2 hours a week supervised visitation. Do we understand each other?
Yes, ma'am.
Why would a normal person who has 3 grandchildren risk the wrath of their custodial parent over nonsense? Over nonsense. He's paid you money. And how much child support is your daughter paying for her daughter?
She's not, and they're not divorced yet.
I don't care whether they're divorced or not. If she were the custodial parent and taking care of the child, and he came to me and said, in the course of a legal dispute, and I said to him, how much money are you paying for child support? And he said, well, we're not divorced yet, so I'm not paying for anything. I would wipe up the floor with him.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Catherine Tarter says her estranged son-in-law, Donald Hughes, owes for the cost of a trailer. Donald says his soon-to-be ex-wife is a drug addict.
Now, I asked you a simple question. The simple question was, how much money was paid to you by him for either the trailer and or the motorhome?
$425 for the trailer and $425 for the motorhome.
Are you passive-aggressive? How much money was paid in total for both things? Just don't give me $425 for each. How much money do you say was paid in total?
$850.
Okay. And you say $1950.
Yes, I do.
Can you prove that to me?
No, I can't. I have no receipts due to my house being taken from my wife, and then when I got my house back, I had no paperwork, no receipts, no pink slips.
They say $850. What makes you think it was $1950?
Because I paid on time, sometimes a couple days late, but every month was paid since October of 2002 until December of 2003.
So far, is that right?
No, Your Honor, I have a payment schedule here
Let me
showing. They were to pay $26 for insurance.
I'm not talking about insurance. I'm talking about how much money he actually paid to you. Okay. $1,450 is, by your calculations, what he paid to you. Not $850, $1,450, based upon this.
Your Honor, those payments were divided up between the motorhome and the trailer equally.
I just told you, he doesn't have the motorhome. You do.
No, we sold it since then.
Well, that's not my problem. That's not his problem.
Well, I asked him to return the motorhome when he refused the one payment and took it back.
You took it
Miss Tarter, you're not following me. If you think they owe you anything for the motorhome, get it from your daughter. Do I make myself clear? You are a very foolish lady. A very foolish lady. If I were in your position, I would not alienate the father, the custodial parent of my granddaughter. I would not alienate him. And for a very stupid reason, money. You did.
This has been going on for over a year.
No, that's not true. Because December of 2003, which is not over a year, he made a payment to you of $500. That's according to your own record.
But we sold it to him on March '03, is when the trailer and the motorhome was sold to them.
Did you hear what I said to you? It's not been going on for over a year. He made a payment to you of $500 in December of 2003.
Yes, he caught it.
When was the last time your daughter sent any money for the support of his child?
March. That's not an issue. They're not divorced yet.
It's an issue, madam, if you're using your brains.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
March of 2003. Was she employed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Where was she employed?
At Child Time.
Until when?
October of 2003.
And what did she do with her money?
I thought she was paying bills, but she wasn't. She was using it on drugs.
Was she placed in a rehab?
I placed her in a rehab in January.
Did she stay?
She stayed for 60 days, Your Honor. And then she was supposed to go to a halfway house, and she ended up getting kicked out of there for doing it again, drinking.
Where are her other two children?
One lives with his father, and the other one lived with the grandparents.
Ms. Tarter, I find that the defendant has paid you $1,450 for a trailer. I find that your agreement was $4,000 for the trailer and the motorhome, not $8,000. Whatever deficiency there is, I suggest you get it from your daughter. Your case is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused and they step out.
I don't want my daughter to not see her mom or her grandparents or anything.
20-year-old Holly Corbella is suing her former high school classmate, 21-year-old Summerlin Gray, for vandalizing her car. Summerlin claims Holly tried to run her over.
Order. All rise. This is case number 358 on the calendar in the matter of Corbella versus Gray. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Gentlemen, have a seat.
Ms. Corbella, according to what I've put together from your complaint, you knew the defendant from high school. You weren't friends, but you knew her from high school. And it is your claim that she vandalized your car. She vandalized your car by kicking it with you in it. Correct. This was after some sort of an altercation at a place where she works. The defendant says that if she touched your car or came into contact with your car, it was because you were trying to run her over. And if there was any damage to your car, it was as a result of that. So, how long ago did you graduate from high school?
2004.
And you?
2004, ma'am.
And you weren't friends?
No.
Were you enemies?
Not really. We just didn't really talk.
Didn't talk, didn't care for each other, so you weren't friends, you weren't enemies, you just knew each other?
Yes.
When did this incident happen with your car?
November 10th, 2005.
Where?
In Crinkles, which is her parents' store.
Crinkles?
Yeah.
What kind of a store is it?
It's like a type 7-Eleven type store.
Okay, so tell me what happened on November 10th.
Me and my boyfriend, we went to the store, I believe, to get cigarettes.
To the store that her parents owned?
Yeah, which I didn't even know that her parents owned the store. So we went in. I went in with him to buy the cigarettes. I knew the guy at the cash register, so I was talking to him.
Who was that?
I believe his name was Dan. I knew him from, like, high school. Like, I hadn't seen him in years. And then I just told him that I was going to go sit in the car because there was a line to listen to music. So I went in the car. And he was in the store, and she came over.
Stand up, sir.
Yes.
Your last name is?
Lord, L-O-R-D.
Okay, so you were standing on line?
Yes.
She went back to sit in the car?
Yes.
What happened in the store?
I was standing in line, and she had came up to the register talking to the guy that she had said hello to, Dan, I believe. When she started talking, she started saying a lot of things about her. I don't want her in my store, like very bad verbal things, and she didn't know I was with her.
What kind
Could I say it on TV? Just, I don't want that in my store, this and that. I don't, you know, she shouldn't be here. If she ever comes in again, I'm going to kick her. Stuff like that. And I basically, she didn't know I was with her, and I was in the back of the line. And then eventually I was like, do you speak to all your customers like that? And then she basically, you know, started yelling at me, and we got into an argument.
Well, what did she say to you?
She was just like, who are you? And I said, well, I'm Holly Corbella's boyfriend. And she's like, yeah? Well, she's like, you can get out of my store, too. I said, oh, this is your store? And she's like, yeah, it's my store. I said, you own this store, and this is how you respect your customers, by yelling like that.
Okay, so you had a verbal altercation with this young lady.
Yes.
And then what happened?
Basically, it kept going on, and then the guy at the register tried calming her down, calming me down, because we were both arguing, and it started to come outside. She came out to me outside, right in the front door.
Did you leave?
Yes, I left.
Did you pay for your cigarettes?
Yes.
Paid for your cigarettes and you walked out?
Yes.
Okay. Now, he's paid for his cigarettes. Is that right, Miss Gray?
No, ma'am.
He didn't pay?
No, ma'am. He
Really?
didn't purchase anything that night, ma'am, and if I may, I will
Just
start...
a second. So he didn't purchase anything. Are you saying you didn't walk out with your cigarettes?
I purchased a 6-pack of Heineken and a pack of cigarettes, Marlboro.
And you paid for them?
Cash.
Okay, good. Go ahead, Miss Gray. I believe him.
Okay. Well,
I believe that he waited online because he wasn't leaving without those cigarettes and he wasn't leaving without the beer. So I believe...
Well, why would anybody, right?
Just a second. Because he's waited online, he's already argued with you, so he may have been disgusted with your store, but he wasn't leaving without his items. So I believe he bought them and he paid for them.
Okay.
Got it?
Got it.
Now, you want to tell me what problem you had with Miss Corbella?
Well, that night, ma'am, Miss Corbella had walked into the food side of my store, and her boyfriend had walked into the liquor side of my store. Holly seen me. She looked directly in my eyes. I didn't say anything out loud to where any customers heard anything, and I pulled my brother aside, who is the manager, and I said, I don't want her in this store. I don't trust her. I've had altercations with her from stealing and hearing...
I thought you said that you didn't have any bad contact with her.
No, I don't.
So what do you mean?
Because my friend has gotten in trouble from her stealing, whatever.
What do you mean your friends got into trouble with her from stealing?
We were never friends, never liked each other. We had this one friend that was friends with me and friends with her.
Yes?
My friend that was also friends with both of us got in trouble with her stealing.
Just a second. So your friend was arrested for stealing, for theft?
Yes.
And according to you, she was with this friend when she got arrested for stealing?
Yes.
Okay. Was she arrested for stealing?
No.
Just your friend was arrested for stealing?
With her, yes.
No. Listen to me.
Yes, she wasn't arrested. No, yes, my friend was arrested.
Just your friend was arrested for stealing. Now, he's on his way out the door. Why did you follow him out the door? Look at me.
I followed him out the door because the altercation that happened inside my parents' store. He left mad, and she actually was inside the store when the fighting was going on. So she heard everything, and she seen everything. I followed him out of this store because my car was in the parking lot, and I didn't want anything happening to my car, anything in the parking lot, because
Now,
they threatened me.
No, listen to me. Listen to me very carefully. There was a line when Mr. Lord was waiting to pay for his cigarettes and his beer, which means there were other customers in the store.
Right.
How many other customers would you say were in the store?
There were only about 3, ma'am.
And is your store a standalone store, or are there other stores in a shopping mall? Or
It's a standalone, ma'am.
how many people were in the store after Mr. Lord left the store?
The same 3, ma'am.
So that there were at least 3 other cars out there. Is
Right.
that right? Listen to me carefully. Plus your car, right?
Plus my car, yes.
And you hadn't seen Miss Corbella since high school, right? And you never met Mr. Lord, right?
Right.
So how do they know which is your car and which is a car
Holly
that
Corbella
belongs?
knows well what my car looks like. I've had the same car since high school, and she's seen my car outside her friend's car and me get into it a couple of times and drive away.
Great.
So
Did she
knows-
just listen to me? Did she ever hurt your car before?
We've never had an altercation.
Just listen to me. Did
No.
she ever hurt your
No,
car
ma'am.
before?
No.
What happened when she followed you outside?
We were still arguing. She told me, you know, I'm going to kick her if she doesn't leave. So I walked up into the car. As I got in the car, no lie, the size of her, I was surprised how strong she came at the car and kicked the car in right where I was. As I closed the door, she came and kicked it. There was no running over her. Then she even went in front of the car as we were leaving. And Holly was all nervous, so she was trying to get around her. The car was already kicked.
You have a picture of the car?
Yes.
I'd like to see
I have
it,
a couple
please.
pictures, actually.
Were you there, sir?
I was outside smoking a cigarette, Your Honor.
I don't remember.
Oh, this is a kick, Miss Gray. This is a kick, my dear.
This is not a kick.
Yeah, this is a kick, Miss Hot Temper.
Okay.
This is a kick. This is not I fell into your car accidentally. This is a kick.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You don't want to say anything, do you?
I'll say something if you want me to.
Do I want you to? No.
And later today,
The forgery was in 2002?
Yes, ma'am.
When were you incarcerated?
New Year's Eve, 05.
Took them 3 years to figure it out?
Took them 3 years to catch me, man.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Holly Corbella says former high school classmate Summerlin Gray vandalized her car. Summerlin says Holly tried to run her over after a confrontation with her boyfriend.
Does this look like I fell into the car accidentally, or does this look like somebody kicked it?
It was a
fell
running
into it
kick.
several times.
Looks like I fell into it several times. Got a hot temper, madam. You can't do that. You can't
I'm sorry,
vandalize
ma'am.
somebody
If
else's
somebody
car.
comes into my family business, he had nothing to do with what I said to her because he didn't even hear me.
What does that have to do with kicking his car?
He wanted to throw a beer case at me over my family counter is what the first threat was. And then, yes, I did go outside to make sure everything was okay in the parking lot. He did not get directly in the car. He stood in my face threatening me to where the point my brother had to come outside and separate us.
Listen to me. What does that have to do with kicking her car?
I didn't kick her car,
You
ma'am.
did.
I flew backwards. No, I did not.
You don't want to say anything, do you?
I'll say something if you want me to.
Do I want you to? No. Could I have an estimate, please, to fix this car where Miss Hot Temper kicked your car?
And ma'am,
Your
they did
parents
not
leave
keep-
you in charge of that business often?
Actually, I'm not in charge, ma'am.
Well, it's good that at least they have some brains. They don't leave you in charge. But does somebody monitor the two of you in that store?
He doesn't work there, ma'am. He was waiting for me to get off.
They don't trust you to work in the store. They trust her. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $940. That's all. Step out.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Do not come in my family's business and start a problem for no reason.
Come up with a case like that to make an excuse that she ran into the car was just absurd.
I could have just told the manager to simply ask her to leave, but her boyfriend insisted in carrying on the situation.
She's just mad that she lost her temper, kicked the car, and now she has to pay for it.
I don't want a theft in my family store, and that's the point of my story.
I don't steal. I've never stolen anything before in my life.
Because of her past. I know her past.
I've never been arrested. I would never damage her car.
They will never be allowed in the store again.
I'm just glad that she gets what she deserves, and I finally get to get my car fixed.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Spurgeon versus Stephan. Step forward.
Jennifer Spurgeon is suing her son, 25-year-old Ozzie Stephan, for bail when he was arrested for writing fraudulent checks.
Miss Spurgeon, you are willing to acknowledge here in court that this is your child.
Yes, my son.
According to your complaint, he owes you for bailing him out of jail.
Yes, he does.
He says he never asked you. You bailed him out on your own. What were you in jail for, sir?
I forged some checks in 02.
For forgery.
Yes, ma'am.
And the forgery was in 2002?
Yes, ma'am.
When were you incarcerated?
New Year's Eve 05.
Is that because that's when you were arrested or because you violated your parole or probation?
That's when I got arrested.
For the forgery in 2002?
Yes, ma'am.
It took him 3 years to figure it out?
It took them 3 years to catch me, ma'am. Because I didn't do anything else wrong.
Is that the only time you've been arrested?
No, ma'am.
Between 2002 and 2005, how many times were you arrested?
0.
Before 2002?
Couple, 2 or 3.
For what?
Me and a couple of my friends stole a racing four-wheeler.
Stole a what?
A four-wheeler, a racing four-wheeler when I was 17.
How old are you now?
25.
Oh, that's a long time ago. What else?
Possession of marijuana.
When was that?
I was 19.
Anything else?
Possession again.
Don't learn your lesson.
No, ma'am.
Now, is that forgery case resolved at this point?
Yes, ma'am.
Was it resolved after a trial or a plea?
After a plea.
What did you plead guilty to and when?
I pled guilty to forgery. I'm not sure. It was the last case was just resolved 2 months ago.
Which last case?
Well, there was 3 counties the checks were in. It was 3 different counties.
Where'd you get the checks from?
A friend of mine.
Whose checks were they?
His checks.
You stole the checks from him or he gave them to you?
He gave them to me.
To do what with?
To get money.
What were you using the money for?
All kinds of different things.
So it took whatever county was 3 years to figure out what was going on. So you were arrested December 31st, 2005.
Yes, ma'am.
What was your bail?
In the beginning, it was $89,000.
Was your friend arrested too?
I don't have any idea.
Why was your bail so high?
Because of the amount of checks that there was.
How much?
I don't remember.
Give me a ballpark figure.
$1,500.
How long did you spend in jail?
46 days.
Was that the first time you had been incarcerated?
For 46 days, yes, ma'am.
More than a day or two?
No. It was the second time.
How long was the previous time you were incarcerated for a substantial period?
A couple days, no.
A couple of days?
Yes, ma'am.
So this was 46 days?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you like it?
No, it wasn't fun at all.
How many times did you speak to your mother? Did you call her?
Oh, yeah.
You call her every week?
Every couple days.
What'd you talk about?
Everything. How I was doing, how I was feeling. Was I learning anything? Was I going to do it again? My daughter.
You have a child?
Yes, ma'am.
What do you do for a living now, Mr. Stephan?
I run a concrete business.
A what?
Custom concrete business.
Custom concrete?
Yeah.
You work all the time?
Most of the time.
You make a living?
Yes, ma'am.
You filed tax returns last year?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. How much did you earn?
I don't remember.
Ballpark.
$35,000.
Nice. And you only have one child?
Yes, ma'am.
Who do you live with?
I live with my father.
Still working the same business that you did last year when you were...
No, ma'am.
Making $35,000?
No, ma'am.
So you left a good business and you went into the custom concrete business?
Yes, ma'am.
So you must make more money?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Love it. Now, it's one of the things you spoke to about your mother, how unhappy you were in prison?
In jail? Yeah, of course.
Did you discuss with her bailing you out?
It came up time to time.
How did it come up?
I would ask her, she would bail me out, and she would tell me no.
And? And?
And?
But look where you are. You're here. 46 days later, you're here. So how did it come about, sir, that you got bailed out?
I finally made it to the last county that I was going to, and I made a phone call to my mom, and she had said...
You made a phone call to your mom at the last county. Shh. We do everything my way here, because it's my playpen. So you finally got to the last county where you had to show up for arraignment, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And the bail in the other counties had been sort of resolved, so you were waiting to get to the last place because they weren't letting go of you until you got to the last place, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So now you got to the last place and you called your mom and you said...
Hi, Mom, what's up?
And she said...
I mean, basically, that's what I called her and said, hey, how you doing? And she told me to call her back in an hour. She was working on something.
And that's all you said to her. Hi, Mom, what's doing?
How's it going? Yeah.
How's it going?
And she...
All right, good. Now he's at the last county. What day is it, Mrs. Spurgeon?
Around the 7th or 8th of February, 06.
And he calls you from the last county that wants him,
Yes.
right? And what does he say to you, and what do you say to him?
He was pretty upset.
What did he say?
Mom, I can't take it anymore. You've got to get me out of here. I've called Grandma. Grandma can't help. She has no money. She's on disability and my father's pension. And
Is this your mother?
This is my mom. I told him that I couldn't get him out. I didn't have any kind of money. All I had was my credit cards.
And he said?
I got a friend that's a bondsman. If you'll call him, he'll cut us a deal.
He said?
Ozzy gave me the name of the bondsman to call.
And did you call?
I did call him, yes.
And did you get a deal?
$1,500 is not a deal when, you know, I didn't get to spend any of it. I had to give it away.
Is that what it cost you to get him out?
Yes, all totally.
What's your mother's last name?
McMullen.
Would you step up, Miss McMullen? How many grandchildren do you have?
17.
Is he one that you like?
He always calls up and says, this is your favorite grandson. I said, okay.
Yeah, he's got a gift of gab. Did he call you from jail and ask you to bail him out?
Well, he said he needed help getting out, but...
Did he call you?
Yes, he did, several times.
Several times. And he said, I need help getting out?
He wanted to get out.
What did you say to him?
I can't help you. I'm on a fixed income, so I can't help you.
And what did he say to you?
I know. I guess he was fishing.
How many times did he call you? Trying to see if he could get some
3
money?
or 4 times, yeah.
Remember calling your grandmother?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you ask her for money?
Oh, yeah.
Remember calling your mother?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you ask her for money?
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Now we got it. Now you can be seated. Okay, thank you very much. See, I knew you might lie about your mother, Mr. Stephan, but I knew you wouldn't lie about your grandmother. You made some payments to your mother on this bail. How many payments did you make on the bail?
I gave her a couple $100.
Just answer my question.
I gave her a couple $100.
$200.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that what he gave you?
He actually paid it to the bonds company.
How much does he still owe? When you paid off the entire amount?
$1,350.
Okay, so these are my questions, Mr. Stephan. When you forged those checks with your buddy and got some cash, whatever it was, $1,500, did you buy anything for your mother?
No, ma'am.
Did you buy anything for your grandmother?
No, ma'am.
Did you give your mother any money?
No, ma'am.
Did you give your grandmother any money?
No, ma'am.
Did your mother get any enjoyment whatsoever from the proceeds of your forgery?
No.
Did she know or in any way help you forge those checks?
No.
So that when you got busted for check forgery, this was owing solely to your bad behavior, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Why should anybody else suffer for your bad behavior?
They shouldn't.
Great. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $1,350.
Thank you, Judge.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
And I didn't
Today video you can see the Judge Judy episode. If you are interested for him the Judge Judy episode, do not forget to comment in my comment section और like and subscribe. तो चलते हैं अपने एपिसोड की तरफ। तो जिस तरह कि आप लोगों ने गाइस जज जूडी की एपिसोड में देखा है कि हम दिखाते हैं जज जूडी एक बढ़िया एपिसोड है, बहुत आला किस्म का। आप लोग अगर इंटरेस्टेड हो इसमें तो देखना बहुत ज़रूरी पसंद करेगा और रिएक्ट करना ना भूलिएगा, रिएक्ट लाइक करना कि हमें सपोर्ट मिल सके। वो सनशाइन लगी यार, क्या सीन है, क्या बोलूँ भाई। हेलो, कोई समझाओ क्या बोलूँ, बताओ क्या कहना चाहते हो। तो इस तरह के गाइस आप लोगों ने देखा जज जूडी एक बहुत अलग एपिसोड है। इसमें हम जज जूडी को डालते हैं, कहाँ डालते हैं, यूट्यूब पे डालते हैं। देखा गाइस आपने, यूट्यूब पे डालते हैं, ऐसा डालते हैं, डालते हैं, डालते हैं, डालते हैं, डालते हैं। मैं प्रो किस तरह ही ले जा रहा हूँ यार। बस यार ये देखिए, आई वीडियो देखिए, देखना गाइस, ये डालते हैं, डालते हैं। मीम बनाता हूँ इससे, डालते 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 डालते, अरे मीम बन गई यार। भी देखो, चेक करो गाइस, मीम बना देती है मैं। अरे हो तुम लाइक एंड सब्सक्राइब भी नहीं करते हो, की करते रहते हो यार तुम सब पूरा दिन। कुछ तो साड़ी इज्जत करो ना लाइक ते सब्सक्राइब दे बटन ठोक के रखो मैं ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦੱਸ ਰਿਹਾ ਐਂਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੰਮ ਚੱਲਣਾ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਮੈਂ 3-3 ਘੰਟੇ ਦੀ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਅਪਲੋਡ ਕਰਦਾ ਸਾਰੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਲਾਈਕ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋ ਇਹ ਕਿਹੜੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੋਈ ਏ व्यूज से वीडियो दे सपोर्ट ते दिखाया करो फिर चैनल सब्सक्राइब भी कितना होना चाहिए कितना नहीं है समझ आइए थानू चैनल को सब्सक्राइब और लाइक कर देना यार भैया अपने अच्छा जी हेलो हेलो क्या बोली जा रहा हूँ यार हैशटैग ले आए जिस तरह के लोग आप लोग गाइस देख सकते हैं इस टाइम में रोटी खाने लगा हुआ है टू मच यम्मी इट्स यम्मी यम्मी फर्स्ट विल ड्रिंक औज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम Let's start with the name of Allah, which is so merciful. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم आज है 18 किधर जाए जा रहे हैं नो परफेक्ट कैमरा अब सही यो ओह माय गुडनेस ओले एक ही हो गया Hello guys, in today's video I am going to show you my new bicycle. If you need to buy it then inbox with me, okay? I will give the number. I have the 3 years old this cycle. I now restore it. It is part 1 of restoration. You can see it is gearable. You can see. You can set the walls and the back. And what the hell? Oh yeah. You can also check here from. Nice. And now we are working. It's a 4-year-old cycle, man. Oh no, it's so smooth working. Now and his gear working. You can see I changed the gear and the gear works also. Now I do it on full. It is too much hard. It not change the gear. Why? 1 minute. It's too much hard. Oh yes, it's now done it. Now we will do again. Oh no. Now it changed. You can see, guys. It changed. The gear changed. Wait. Oh yes. Now you can see. Now I change to get downside, and you see what? It doesn't change. Now it will be changed. Sealed. Yes, you can see it changed. That what you can see my 3-4-year-old restoration of my cycle is good, working now in 5 to 4 year begins. Also you can see I will upload on YouTube. This is my new cycle, my cycle. Also you can see here with me. Do not forget to like and subscribe my channel. Bye.